My name is Jennifer, and at 43 years old, I find myself completely hooked on Spanish soap operas. Thanks to various streaming services, I've been binge-watching one dramatic series after another. There's something irresistible about the constant twists and turns, but little did I know my own life was about to rival any soap opera in drama. It was nearly 6 years ago, when I was living with my older husband. We had never been blessed with children, but I cherished our time together. That all changed one evening when I received a call from Monica, my best friend since childhood, who had even attended our wedding. "Hey Jennifer, it's been a while. I wanted to let you know that I got divorced," Monica said. "Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. It sounds like a tough time." "Let's get together for drinks soon," I replied, trying to offer some comfort. When I got home, I was about to tell my husband about Monica's news, but he surprised me by saying, "I know Monica's divorced." I was taken aback. "How did you know about that?" "I haven't mentioned it to you yet." He looked at me with an expression that suggested he was piecing something together. "I think I overheard something," he said, though his vague explanation left me puzzled. I shrugged off the confusion and told him, "Yes, Monica is divorced. We're planning to meet up for drinks soon." My husband then asked, "Can I come along?" I was puzzled. I thought it was supposed to be a girls' night out. Despite my hesitation, I agreed to ask Monica if it was all right for him to join us. To my surprise, Monica responded enthusiastically, "Sure, let's all go out for drinks together." I was disappointed, wishing for a girls-only evening, but I relented. In the end, the three of us, my husband Monica, and I, met up for drinks. The night turned out to be quite enjoyable. Monica vented about her ex-husband's shortcomings, and we all shared laughs over her stories. It felt like we were having a great time, but when I excused myself to use the restroom and returned, I was taken aback by the sight of Monica and my husband gazing deeply into each other's eyes and engaged in a conversation that seemed a bit too intimate. A knot formed in my stomach as I took in the scene. The evening had started off as a simple gathering, but now I couldn't shake the uneasy feeling that something was amiss. Couldn't shake the feeling that something seemed too intimate between them. They hadn't seen each other since our wedding, so how did they become so chummy after just a few drinks? It felt like I was intruding on a date between two people who were clearly more than just old friends. When I returned to my seat, they had resumed their normal demeanor, acting as if nothing had happened. I wondered if I was overreacting, but the uneasy feeling lingered. As the evening drew to a close, I decided it was time to settle the bill and leave. Monica was quite drunk, and my husband casually mentioned, "I'll take her home." His nonchalant attitude caught me off guard. "I'm going to take her home" sounded more like a command than a suggestion, as if he was deciding on his own. I protested, "I'm not as drunk as she is, but I've had a few drinks too. Besides, I'm your wife. It's too late for her to be alone, and she's in no condition to get home safely." He insisted, "You take a cab and go home yourself. She's fine. I'll make sure she gets home." I was taken aback. "If you take her in a cab, she'll go straight to her apartment, won't she? I'm worried she won't make it on her own." I knew Monica was living alone, and it was possible she had mentioned this while I was in the restroom. The discomfort I felt quickly turned into disbelief. "Fine then. I'll go home myself," I said. I left them at the restaurant, feeling a mix of unease and determination. As much as I didn't want to leave Monica alone with my husband, I realized it might be more useful for me to return home and investigate their relationship. Once I arrived home, I headed straight to my husband's study. A room that wasn't a bedroom, but a private space where he might keep important information. As I searched through the room, I realized that if I could find answers in Monica's house, it would be quite an invasion of privacy. Still, the conflict in my mind was overwhelming. While rummaging through the shelves, I stumbled upon a basic photo album, one I didn't recall seeing when we moved in. With a sinking feeling, I began flipping through the pages. I should have stopped, but it was too late. The album was filled with photos of my husband and Monica, both beaming with happiness. Judging by Monica's hairstyle and the way my husband's clothes looked, it was clear they had been meeting secretly for years, possibly since shortly after our marriage. They had been involved in an intense relationship for over a decade. The shock and the combination of my hunger and alcohol left me feeling nauseous. I rushed to the bathroom, barely making it before I began to throw up. Just as I was trying to compose myself, my husband came home. "Oh, you're throwing up? Did you drink that much?" he asked, rubbing my back. I snapped, "Don't touch me," and slapped his hand away. "Just wait a second. I need to get some water." He seemed to think I was too drunk to know what was going on. "Yes, I know who you are," I said bitterly. "I just hate you right now. I wish I could get so drunk I'd forget how much this hurts. Wait here. We need to talk," he said, clearly trying to lighten the mood with a laugh. I glared at him, trying to catch my breath. "Is this your idea of a joke? Are you trying to make light of the situation because I'm upset about you dropping her off?" He shrugged, seemingly unaware of the gravity of the moment. "Well, let's adjust the tone then. First question. What's this picture about?" I confronted him with the album I had discovered in his room, simply showing him the cover. His face turned pale as he saw it. "Let's start with a yes or no question," I said. "Is there any wife in the world who could look at this picture and be okay with it? You know, considering what it shows." He remained silent, and I pressed on. "How do you think I feel right now? Go ahead, give me an answer." When he didn't respond, I snapped, "Why aren't you saying anything? Why just sit there in silence?" His silence only heightened my frustration. "Okay, I cheated. I'm really stupid. I'm truly sorry," he finally admitted, his voice lacking sincerity. I wished he would just show some real remorse, maybe even cry a little. His silence was unbearable. Then finally he spoke. "She's the one for me. Monica and we were both married to the wrong partners. After everything, we finally found each other. I feel like we're soulmates, destined to be together." I was stunned. "Soulmates? Are you suddenly a poet or something?" He continued, "I realize now that I made a mistake marrying you. Our soul vibrations are different. We can't be happy together. This is a test of fate for me and Monica." His words were so disconnected from reality that I could hardly process them. "So, we're not connected on a spiritual level. Is that what you're saying?" I stared at him, speechless, struggling to grasp the bizarre turn of our conversation. I was completely baffled by his words. I couldn't make sense of what he was saying. Only that he and I were hopelessly incompatible. My best friend had betrayed me, my husband had betrayed me, and honestly, I was beyond tears. "I don't understand what you're talking about," I said, feeling numb. "All I know is that you and I are hopelessly incompatible. If you're so keen on being with Monica, then fine. I'm willing to let you go, because you've been a terrible husband." He seemed to be speaking in riddles, and it only made my frustration grow. "I don't think you and I are compatible either," I said flatly. "You've clearly lost your mind, but I still don't understand what you're on about." "I knew you'd say that," he replied, seemingly resigned. "So you'll agree to a peaceful divorce, right?" I replied, "So you won't be paying alimony then?" He didn't seem to grasp the gravity of the situation. "I don't think I'm in the right spiritual mindset to deal with you right now," he said, his voice trailing off as if he were in a different world. His incoherence was almost maddening. "What's the matter with you, Jen?" he asked. I responded with an equally ridiculous answer. "I'm ignoring your absurd divorce request." Ignoring his pleas, I headed to the shower. He continued to shout from the other room, criticizing me and demanding a response. "I'll never be free unless you agree to divorce me," he yelled. I ignored him completely. "You'll be free to do what you want, and I'll be free from you. From this day on, you're nothing but a piece of trash to me, as insignificant as mold in a bathtub." The next morning, my husband left for work in a foul mood. I didn't greet him, prepare his breakfast, or even help him with his tie. I had taken the day off after our night out, and I got up just in time to see him leave. Well, from today on, I'll be living alone. I decided to tidy up my room, and by the evening, when my husband came home, I heard him call out from the front porch, "I'm home." But I didn't respond. Soon he was shouting about his missing shoes. "Hey Jen, where are my shoes? And why are you eating without me?" I remained silent, watching TV and enjoying my steak and fine champagne. "Yes, I threw away your shoes," I called out without looking at him. "It's normal to eat alone since I live here by myself. I have quite a bit saved up, so I'm treating myself." He sounded frustrated. "Jen, are you even listening?" I poured myself another glass of champagne, ignoring him. "We'll talk after I get out of the shower," he said, but I could hear the irritation in his voice. As I heard him clattering around upstairs, I knew he was searching for his pajamas. Then he called down, "Jen, why is there nothing in my room? Where are my pajamas? I can't even take a bath without any clothes." I replied calmly, "I live alone now. You'll have to figure it out." I quickly finished my meal and went to my room, showing no reaction to his distress. He followed me, asking where his food was. "Go buy your own," I said. "I've told you repeatedly that I live alone." I had already finished my bath, so I headed straight to the bedroom. I had even disposed of his toothbrush, curious to see how he would manage in the morning. When I woke up, my husband was sitting in a chair, looking like Roddins the Thinker. He must have been in such a rush last night that he didn't manage to properly get ready. His hair was sticky and messy, exposing his scalp. As soon as he saw me, he tried to compose himself and got down on his knees, desperately apologizing. I was genuinely shocked by how far he was willing to go. "It hurts me to know how you've treated me, but I realize I've done terrible things to you without considering your feelings," he said, his voice full of regret. "I'm sorry for that." His apology was exactly what I needed to hear, but I didn't respond. "I want us to start over," he added, hoping for a second chance. I was stunned into silence. I gave him a look of sheer disgust. No, I said. "I can't live with someone who is spiritually lost, cheats, and causes so much trouble." His shock was palpable. "You don't like that?" he asked, clearly taken aback. "Think about what you did," I said coldly. "Say something if you have a clue." He pleaded, "I'll do whatever you say." I knew he was falling back on his usual tactics. Promises and material gifts whenever we had a fight. But this time I was prepared. "Okay then, do as I say," I replied, the words I'd been waiting to say finally escaping my lips. I smiled, and his face fell, a look of despair spreading across it. I wanted to see that expression. No, I corrected myself. "I don't mean it like that." His confusion was evident. "I have no intention of accepting any terms," I continued. "Do you really think you can just brush off your infidelity after all this time?" "I'm taking action against both you and Monica," I declared. "I'll do everything in my power to hold both of you accountable. And I'll inform Monica's ex-husband as well. You'll both be facing alimony claims." He looked at me with wide eyes. "Good luck paying them," I said. "Come on, get up and take your things with you." I forced him to gather his belongings and dragged him to the front door. "Where are you taking me?" he asked, bewildered. "Outside," I said firmly. "I'm taking over this house. It's mine now. I don't want any more strangers in my home." "Wait, can't you at least wait until after the divorce?" he pleaded. "That's not going to happen," I snapped back. "Why not?" "What the hell, Jen? You just started talking all of a sudden and then you were so cold. Shut up and get out." I shoved him out the front door, with all my might. The strength I was able to muster came from the years of accumulated stress and anger. It's strange how much negative energy can build up over time. Before the divorce papers were finalized, we all, my husband Monica, her ex-husband, and I, met to discuss things. Monica admitted she had fallen for my husband at our wedding and had approached him immediately afterward. Their affair began then, and they had been discreetly continuing their relationship, hoping to stay under the radar until they were both free. They had been cheating on both their families. Monica's ex-husband was devastated when he first learned of the affair. I had no sympathy for the situation. Instead, I was relieved. The evidence they provided would support my claim for alimony. After being kicked out of our home, my husband moved in with Monica. But when she received the alimony demands from both me and her ex-husband, reality hit her hard. "We can't remarry if we're in debt," she said. "I need to find someone with better financial prospects." She gave him the boot, despite her claims of a spiritual connection with him. Isn't she the soulmate you thought you were connected to on a deeper level? And now you're losing her over money. I couldn't help but feel disgusted by their predicament. Suck it up, I thought. This is what you get for betraying your wife. 6 years have passed since then. While I was paying alimony, my ex-husband retired and had to spend most of his retirement funds on those payments. He still struggles, and Monica's situation isn't any better. She's living in tough conditions, having exhausted her savings on alimony, and no man would want to remarry her in her current state. As for me, I've been earning well but haven't done anything special with my money except focus on work. Life is unpredictable, so I'm trying to live modestly and do what I enjoy. They say, if you're prepared for anything, you're prepared for everything. I've been enjoying watching Spanish soap operas every day. Recently, I met someone at work who shares my interest, and we're even talking about traveling to Spain together someday. I look forward to that day, and I'm not concerned with soul vibrations. For now, my goal is to live happily and peacefully.
One day, as I was preparing dinner in the kitchen, I heard a strange noise from my daughter. "Mom, oh no, this can't be," she exclaimed. I quickly turned off the stove and rushed to the dining table where she was sitting. "What on earth is this?" I gasped in shock. To my surprise, there was a wiretap device on the table. Who could have done this, and why? "My name is Gwen, a 37-year-old housewife. I live with my husband, Oscar, and our daughter, Lynn." "Mom, hurry up," Lynn urged. Okay, just a second," I replied, trying to calm my nerves. Lynn is a 10-year-old elementary schooler who loves swimming and never misses her weekly lessons. Watching her grow into a kind and cheerful girl fills me with joy. The three of us, my daughter, my husband, and I, get along very well and live happily together. But life isn't without its challenges. Our main problem isn't with each other, but with my husband's mother, my mother-in-law. She and my father-in-law live just a 15-minute walk from our house. My mother-in-law dotes on her son and has always been uncomfortable with the idea of him not living by her side. At one point, she insisted that we move in with her. She was relentless, but I was determined to maintain our family's independence. My husband, fed up with her constant interference, told her firmly that we couldn't live with her. However, my mother-in-law didn't give up easily and repeatedly insisted on moving in with us. To appease her, we eventually compromised by moving into a house within walking distance of hers. My father-in-law helped convince her, and for a while, things settled down. Even though we lived nearby, my mother-in-law continued to intrude on our lives. During the holiday season, we always had to visit her because of the proximity. Despite my husband and I trying to maintain our distance, she would use the neighbors to pressure us. "Why don't you take care of your mother? Your wife isn't doing her duty. Your mother is in pain, and she went through so much to give birth to you. As the eldest son, it's your responsibility to care for your parents," they would say, echoing her sentiments. Each time, we ended up having to go to her house to keep the peace. I wished she would be as kind to me as she was to her son, but she saw me as an enemy. Every time I saw her, she would pick on me. "When you're feeding Oscar such terrible food, I can't believe it. I feel sorry for him. I wish I could cook for him every day," she would sneer. "Mom, how can you say such things? Stop it." My husband would always defend me, but her persistence never waned. How can it be that you've been married for 2 years and still haven't had a baby, Gwen? I think you might be infertile, she once said, shocking me with her cruelty. Even my husband was furious. Mom, enough. We're not in a rush. Besides, having a child is a blessing, not something you can force. Don't assume Gwen is infertile based on your feelings. It could just as easily be me, he retorted, with my father-in-law backing him up. Oscar's right. You can't predict when you'll be blessed with a child. Don't look down on Gwen just because you had a baby early, my father-in-law added. My mother-in-law finally calmed down after their intervention, but the peace was short-lived. Soon enough, she resumed her bullying. When our daughter was finally born, my father-in-law was overjoyed to welcome his first granddaughter. I hoped that having a grandchild would soften my mother-in-law's attitude, but her reaction was far from what I expected. What? It's not a boy? Are you kidding me? It's your duty to give birth to a boy since you married the eldest son, she complained, completely disregarding the joy of the occasion. After all the pressure she had put on us to have a child, she now had the audacity to complain because our baby wasn't a boy. My husband and father-in-law were equally appalled by her behavior. It became clear that she simply disliked everything about me. As our daughter grew, my mother-in-law showed little affection for her, and Lynn, even as a child, sensed that her grandmother didn't like her. As a result, she became attached only to her grandfather. Seeing this, my mother-in-law's anger grew, and she began to treat both my daughter and me even worse. Despite Lynn being her son's child, my mother-in-law criticized her character, saying, even though she's Oscar's daughter, she's not of good character. The situation was heartbreaking, and I wondered how much longer we could endure her relentless negativity. I wondered if she was insinuating that Lynn only inherited my worst traits, or worse, that Lynn wasn't even Oscar's child. That was the final straw. Please don't make such accusations. I snapped at my mother-in-law. Lynn is Oscar's and mine. What kind of nerve do you have to say something like that? Oh, you're getting upset like that because you're hiding something, aren't you? She sneered, as if enjoying my anger. Stop it, I shouted. You've gone too far. We're leaving. My father-in-law was out shopping, and Oscar was in the other room on a work call. I quickly got Lynn ready, put on her shoes, and headed to the door. When Oscar noticed us leaving, he came over, surprised. What's going on? What's the matter? I'm sick and tired of your mother's horrible attitude, I replied, my voice shaking with frustration. Did Mom say something again? She started questioning if Lynn is really yours. What? She said what? His face turned red with anger, and he called out to his mother. Mom, are you serious? How can you say such a thing? But she didn't even flinch. I just said what I thought. Oscar and Lynn don't look alike. Are you kidding me? We're leaving, and we're never coming back. Oscar grabbed his things, put on his shoes, and we left the house, heading home in silence. That was ugly, he finally said as we got inside. How insane is she? Does she have any morals at all? I sighed. Lynn's just entering a sensitive age. It's terrible that your mother would say such disgusting things, planting negative thoughts in her head. A little later, my father-in-law called Oscar, asking why we left. When Oscar explained what happened, his father was appalled and promised to give my mother-in-law a stern talking to. But despite their anger, my mother-in-law never stopped bullying me. I was sure she'd continue to find ways to annoy both me and Lynn. One evening, Oscar turned to me and said, let's stop going to my parents' house. What? But what about the neighbors? They'll start saying things again, telling us to be good to your mother. Then ignore them. The neighbors are just strangers. We don't need to care about their opinions. He was right, and I felt reassured. My mother-in-law might be good at manipulating the neighbors, but as Oscar said, we just needed to ignore them. We used to feel guilty every time one of the neighbors criticized us, but now I didn't care what the outside world thought. We were united as a family, and that was all that mattered. After that, we stopped visiting my in-laws. My mother-in-law tried contacting Oscar, asking why we hadn't come over, but we stood firm. We were done letting her control our lives. I couldn't fathom how she even managed to contact him like that in the first place. Did she not realize she was the cause of all this? Or did she simply want to see her son, knowing full well she was doing the worst possible thing? Regardless, we were resolute. We would never go to my in-laws' house again, and we certainly wouldn't allow my mother-in-law to come to ours. As we started living like this, the neighbors began to meddle, offering their unsolicited opinions. But I didn't pay them any attention anymore. I would politely thank them for their concern and pretend to listen, but inside, I was completely indifferent. Thanks to this newfound distance, we were finally able to live peacefully for a while. My daughter no longer had to see her mean grandmother, and she seemed happier every day. I found myself wishing we had cut ties with my mother-in-law much sooner. By the way, my father-in-law never did anything wrong, so we still met him for dinner occasionally without my mother-in-law's knowledge. My daughter adored her grandfather and loved these dinners with him. We were enjoying our lives and spending happy days together. But then something unexpected happened. One day, as I was preparing dinner in the kitchen, I suddenly heard my daughter make a startled noise. I wondered what she was up to, but I was in the middle of cooking and couldn't step away. I decided I'd ask her about it later. "Mom, I can't get it off," she called out, sounding surprised. "What's going on, honey? Come see this. Hurry. I'm putting the pot on the stove. Just give me a moment. Please just come," she insisted. Sensing her urgency, I turned off the stove and hurried over to the dining table. What? What is this?" To my shock, there was a wiretap sitting right there. "Who did this? And why?" I whispered. "Mom, this can't be happening." My daughter was starting to panic. Quickly, I covered her mouth and typed a message on my phone. "Don't say anything. We don't know who might be listening." She nodded silently, understating the gravity of the situation. There might be other wiretaps in the house, and we had to be careful. I stepped outside and called the police. When they arrived and conducted a thorough search of the house, I learned something truly shocking. They found one wiretap under the dining room table, another in our bedroom, and yet another in my daughter's room. We were horrified. We had no idea how long this had been going on, but someone had been eavesdropping on our private conversations at home. The police explained that the placement of the devices suggested it wasn't the work of an amateur. They warned us that now that the bugs had been discovered and removed, the person responsible might come back to check on them. The police advised us to be very careful and assured us they would increase patrols in the neighborhood. My husband had just left on a business trip that day and wouldn't be back for a while. Given the circumstances, it wasn't safe for my daughter and me to stay in the house alone. We decided to stay at my parents' house until my husband returned. I didn't want to alarm my husband while he was on his business trip, as it might distract him and cause unnecessary worry. I decided it was best to wait until he got home to tell him what had happened. My parents were deeply concerned when they heard that our house had been bugged. They were furious that someone would do something so vile, and insisted that whoever was responsible needed to be caught as soon as possible. My daughter was also very upset and scared. "Mommy, I forgot my stuffed bunny," she said, her voice trembling. "Oh, you did," I replied gently, noticing how close she was to tears. She always slept with that big stuffed rabbit as her pillow, and in her current frightened state, there was no way she'd be able to sleep without it. Seeing her distress, my father immediately suggested we should go and get it for her. "I'll go with you," I agreed. "Thanks, Dad," I said, grateful for his support. Together, my father and I returned to the house. We were both on edge, aware that someone could be lurking around. Moving cautiously, we entered the house and retrieved the stuffed animal from my daughter's room. Just as we were about to leave, we suddenly heard the front door unlock. My father and I froze, covering our mouths to stifle any sound. Footsteps echoed down the hallway, and my heart raced so fast I thought it might burst. My father stood protectively at the entrance to my daughter's room, his eyes fixed on the hallway. The footsteps passed by us and headed into the living room. It became clear that the intruder was likely there to retrieve the bug from the dining room table. My father and I exchanged a look. We needed to get out while we still could. Quietly, he opened the door and peeked into the dining room. "What? Oh my God," my father whispered in shock, his eyes widening in disbelief. I whispered angrily to my father, "Dad, don't make a sound." He turned to me with a puzzled expression and asked, "Is that Oscar?" "What?" I whispered back, shocked by his words. Unable to contain my curiosity, I slowly opened the door and peeked into the living room. To my astonishment, there was my husband, checking under the dining table. I couldn't comprehend what was happening. Why was my husband at home when he was supposed to be on a business trip? And why was he examining the spot where the bug had been found? "What are you doing?" I asked, stepping into the room. He froze, startled, and then turned to me with wide eyes. "What are you doing here?" he stammered. "That's my question," I shot back, my voice trembling with confusion and anger. I thought you were on a business trip. What's going on here, Oscar? He started to stammer. Oh no, it's just that. Before he could finish, the front door opened, and we heard a high-pitched, familiar voice. Oscar, did you recover the listening device? It was my mother-in-law. Mom, Oscar began, but then he noticed her shocked expression as she finally realized we were standing there. Why? What's going on? I demanded, slowly piecing the situation together. Oscar, you did this with your mother? You bugged our house? Seeing no way out, my husband's shoulders slumped as he began to explain. Because you're having an affair, aren't you? What? I was utterly baffled. What are you talking about? The neighbors, they said they saw you with some guy, walking around, letting him into our house during the day, and even going into a restaurant together. I stared at him in disbelief. What are you saying? I have no idea what you're talking about. I kept getting reports of your supposed affair from different people, and I started to think you were being unfaithful, he admitted, his voice cracking. Mom even said that Lynn and I don't look alike, so I talked to her about it. She convinced me to bug the house to get evidence of the affair. So I did it, and when the wiretap suddenly stopped transmitting on the day I said I was going on a business trip, I thought something was wrong, so I rushed back to check on it. My mind reeled as his words sunk in. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. Unbelievable, I muttered, feeling a surge of anger. You did all of this because you believed baseless rumors? You let your mother manipulate you into thinking I was cheating on you? But when you keep hearing something like that, you start to believe it, don't you? He tried to justify. Don't be ridiculous. I snapped. Do you really think I would do such a thing? If you can't trust me, why did you just hire a private detective or something? And if you doubt that Lynn is your daughter, why not just do a DNA test instead of this insane behavior? Oscar's face crumpled as he realized the gravity of his mistake. I'm sorry. I was wrong. I did terrible things to you. Please forgive me. But it was too late. I shook my head, tears of frustration welling up in my eyes. It's too late to apologize. I can't do this anymore. Let's get a divorce. No, please, he begged, desperation in his voice. I was wrong. We're a family, right? Let's stay together as a family. That's enough, I said coldly. I'm so disappointed in you. I can't stay married to someone who so easily believes rumors. Just then, my mother-in-law interjected with a spiteful tone. Oscar, aren't you glad you're getting rid of this woman? I'm sure she's having an affair, even if she's hiding it. You should get rid of this woman and her daughter once and for all and find someone new, my mother-in-law spat out, even in the middle of such a tense situation. Before I could respond, my father stepped in, shielding me. Why would the neighbors lie like that? Did someone make them say it? What do you think? He stared intently at my mother-in-law. She flinched but quickly retorted, I don't know. Why should I know? My father didn't back down. If this is all based on lies, that it's a serious issue. My daughter could sue the neighbors for slander. That's right, he continued. Because of the neighbors' rumors, Gwen and Oscar's marriage is falling apart. Should we start telling them now that we're going to sue? My mother-in-law instantly panicked. That's too much. They were probably just joking. My father pressed on. A joke? That's even worse. They should be held accountable. Why not? You can't do that, she protested, her voice shaky. Why not? My daughter is being falsely accused of infidelity. People who spread lies like that should be punished, my father declared. He then turned to me. Gwen, let's go. I nodded, slipping on my shoes and heading for the door. But just as we were about to leave, my mother-in-law broke down, tears streaming down her face. It's me. I told her neighbors to give Oscar false information. I stopped in my tracks, shocked. I took off my shoes and turned back to face her. Is that true? She nodded, still on her knees. Yes. I thought that if Oscar divorced you for having an affair, he'd come back to live with me. Oscar's eyes widened in disbelief, and then his face twisted in anger. Mom, you've got to be kidding me. What were you thinking? Don't you feel ashamed? He turned to me. When I had nothing to do with this. It's all her. But I met his gaze coldly. No, Oscar, you're the one who bugged our house. I don't trust you anymore. Lynn and I are done with you. I'm divorcing you. With that, I left the house with my father, leaving both my husband and mother-in-law slumped on the floor, their faces pale with shock. Later, I went straight to my lawyer to begin divorce proceedings. I also confronted the neighbors, offering them a deal, in exchange for not suing them. They had to tell me every detail of what my mother-in-law had asked them to do. They confessed everything, confirming that she had orchestrated the entire scheme. As a result, the court accepted my claim, and I was awarded alimony and child support. My mother-in-law's actions even led to her own downfall. Her husband divorced her and kicked her out of the house. She tried to cling to Oscar, but he wanted nothing to do with her after realizing she had caused our divorce. Now, she's living alone in a small apartment, working part-time to make ends meet. As for me, I got a new job and started working full-time. My parents helped me take care of Lynn, who has moved on from her father and is putting all her energy into swimming, something she's loved for a long time. I'm determined to work hard and build a good life for her, focusing on what matters most: her happiness and well-being. My name is Amy Clark, and I'm 28 years old. Currently, I work at my father's construction company. I'm getting married soon to George Brown, a college classmate who confessed his feelings to me. We started dating, and now we live together. George works at a company in New York City while I work locally. He commutes by train, and I drive to work. With our wedding just 3 months away, I'm busy with preparations. George usually gets home around 7 p.m., so I handle our meals. On his days off, he helps by cleaning our apartment, especially the bathroom. I love cars, especially driving them. Thanks to my father's company, I even have a crane license. Despite being only 5'1" with a baby face, I often surprise people when they see me operating a crane at a construction site in my work clothes. I find their reactions amusing. One day, I was about to go shopping with my best friend, Megan Flynn. We've been best friends since elementary school and even went to the same college. She's a confidant with whom I can share anything. We planned to visit a newly opened outlet mall in the next state. It was a bit far, but we thought it would be a nice drive. I headed to the convenience store where we decided to meet. When I arrived, Megan was already there. "Sorry to keep you waiting. Have you been here long?" I asked. "No, I just got a coffee." "Want some?" Megan replied. Her coffee looked tasty, so I took her up on the offer. "Thanks. Could you grab one for me too? I'll set the navigation system." Happily obliging, Megan went back into the convenience store. As I set up the car's GPS, I accidentally pressed the history button. "Darn it, this touch panel is so sensitive," I muttered, trying to switch the screen back. Then I noticed a surprising entry in the history. "Hotel Lovely Chateau." "What's this?" I wondered aloud. I'd never searched for such a thing before. This is my car, but George occasionally uses it too. He must have used it. I didn't think much of it and continued setting my destination. Today, Megan and I were heading towards the outlet mall that just opened in the neighboring state. The weather was great, making for a pleasant drive. Near an exit ramp, Megan suddenly pointed out, Look, Lovely Chateau Hotel. What a cheesy name for a hotel these days." Lovely Chateau, the hotel from the search history earlier. While driving, I couldn't take a good look, but there was indeed a big sign saying Lovely Chateau Hotel. We laughed together, but I couldn't help but feel a bit concerned because of its appearance in the search history. After finishing our shopping and dropping Megan home, I returned alone. Once I arrived, I checked the car navigation system again. Lovely Chateau Hotel. As I searched the name, it indeed showed the location near that exit ramp. It was definitely that hotel. It was undeniably one of those types of hotels. I couldn't help but wonder why George had searched for that hotel. Deciding to keep a close eye on George's activities, I installed a dash cam in my car. I discussed the idea of installing a dash cam with George. He agreed, saying, "Why not? A lot of people have them these days. It's good for safety too. But in return, you have to pay for it, Amy. It's your car after all." Although the car is in my name, George also uses it, so he ended up contributing a bit to the cost. The next day after work, I drove straight to the dealership and had a dash cam installed. It came with cameras facing the front and back, and one that recorded the interior of the car. The recording time is 5 hours, after which it overrides previous footage. I also decided to add a GPS logger, which records the vehicle's movements via GPS. After George used the car, I checked the dash cam footage and GPS logger data. I mainly use the car for commuting, so George typically uses it on his days off. He always asks me for permission in advance. One weekend, George approached me. "Can I use the car this Saturday?" "Sure, but where are you going?" I asked. "I'm planning to go to the shopping mall you went to last week. A friend wants to check it out," he replied. Who's this friend? Just a colleague from work. He lives pretty close by. Is this friend a woman? No way. He's a buff guy, even bulkier than me. All right then, bring me back a souvenir. Gotcha, Amy. I bet you like something edible. Yeah, I'd love something sweet. All right, got it. The weekend came as planned. George left on Saturday and returned in the evening. I had been waiting for him to come back and use the excuse of having left something in the car to retrieve the memory card and the GPS logger. After George went to bed, I checked the data from the GPS logger and the memory card. The GPS logger showed he did go to the shopping mall, but it also revealed that he had taken a detour on the way back, exiting at an interchange. Upon enlarging the location, I saw it was the lovely Chateau Hotel. This seemed completely suspicious. Our wedding is next month, and now this. My fingers trembled as I operated the device. This was already a huge shock, but I composed myself and checked the memory card. I inserted it into the computer and played back the recorded content. Suddenly, a strange woman appeared on the screen, sitting in the passenger seat. She was quite flashy with long hair and seemed pretty. She appeared to be older than me, but her occasional smile was somewhat childish. Unable to think straight, I just stared at the screen, completely shocked. The conversation was also recorded. Really, you're such a bad boy. You're getting married next month and you're still doing things like this, she laughed. It's all good. The reason I'm marrying her is because her dad's the boss. He's a construction contractor, but he's loaded. George's voice resonated from the playback. Oh, but once you're married, doesn't that mean we're over? No way. You're the real deal for me. I plan on divorcing her after a year or so. Of course, I'll make it look like she's the bad one, and I'll grab a hefty alimony and her parents' wealth. After that, I'll be with you. A whole year. Grace sounded disappointed. No, we'll continue this relationship in the meantime. I can't bear to be away from you even for a day. That makes me happy. I love you, George. I love you too, Grace. I stopped the playback. I couldn't watch any further. George had been unfaithful, cheating, and he was marrying me just to take over my father's company. The proposal, the birthday we spent at the Seaview Hotel, everything was a farce. Why? Tears blurred my view of the computer screen. The next day, I told George I needed to prepare for the wedding and would be going back to my parents' home for a while. George replied without much thought, okay. Perhaps he was even pleased that I would be gone. I told my parents, I feel a bit nervous and I want to stay with you guys for a bit. Please let me cool off. They seemed to think I was having pre-wedding jitters and welcomed me back happily. After a couple of days, I received a message from my best friend, Megan. I felt I could tell Megan the truth. I told Megan everything. She said, okay, I'll come over tonight. Let's drink until dawn. Despite her cute face, Megan had some boyish qualities, which I loved about her. I told my parents it was a last-minute bachelorette party. Soon enough, Megan showed up with bags full of drinks and snacks. Mom, I'm borrowing Amy for the night. It might get a bit loud, so please bear with us, Megan joked as soon as she arrived. Oh dear, I see you're all chatterboxes, but don't drink too much, okay? I made some stew, so take it and eat it, my mom said, thoughtfully preparing some snacks as well. Wow, thank you. The wonderful smell earlier was the stew, wasn't it? I'll gratefully accept this. Oh, by the way, may I invite another friend over? Megan asked. Sure, go ahead and make it a party that Amy will remember. Thank you so much. With that, she called over another friend, Jane. Jane was a high school classmate and, interestingly, a wedding planner at the venue we had booked. She would be overseeing our wedding. She went to the same high school as Megan, and they had met several times, so they were good friends now. The party started with the three of us. I showed the two of them the dash cam footage. Then Megan said, oh, I know this person. She's Grace, a junior from our college club. Amy, you wouldn't know her because you weren't in the club, but both George and I were in the club with her. I was astounded by this revelation. Wait, George's junior? I thought she was older than me. She always seemed mature for her age, but who would have thought it was Grace? She's invited to the wedding. Most of the club members will be there, Megan said while poking a radish from the stew. But this situation is frustrating, isn't it? I want to get back at her somehow. Jane, crushing an empty beer can, said, she's always had a strong sense of justice and even caught a gropper in high school, handing him over to the police. She was enraged as if it were her own matter. Accepting Jane's words of revenge, Megan started talking. Let's ruin the wedding then. I have a plan, she said, preparing a piece of paper and starting to write something down. What do you think, Jane? Your cooperation is essential. Please help Amy. Of course, I'm the planner for this wedding, so I can make anything happen, Jane replied. Her being the planner joining our side certainly boosted the success rate of our plan. Great, you're reliable. Hey, both of you, you've had too much to drink, I cautioned. Thus, the plan was formed. I covered the two of them, who had fallen asleep from drinking too much, with blankets and whispered, "Thank you, Meg and Jane." Despite having had too much to drink myself, I felt a bit relieved. The next day, I returned to George's place. Several days after I got home, I put my first plan into action. While watching the recorded video, it was Megan who found it. One day after work, I decided to dine out. I met George at the station, drove him to the diner in my car, and we had a meal. When we got home, I let George out first and returned to the room after parking my car. Then I boldly went to the living room, deeply moved, and said, "George, to prepare something like this for me without even telling me, huh?" George made a strange sound in response to my sudden words. "Isn't this a gift for me? I found it in the car." Saying this, I showed George the paper bag containing a luxury brand bag. The brand name was boldly printed on the paper bag. I was going to clear the rear window of the car because it was dirty. When I tried to pull out the cleaning tools from the floor under the rear seat, this was in there. "Oh, George, you hid it there to surprise me, didn't you?" "Sorta found it." I pretended to be innocent and acted even more delighted. "No, that is," George fumbled his words. You have someone else to send such a thing to." "Don't be silly. I have no one but you, Amy." "Right, you bought it for me, didn't you? How much did this expensive thing cost?" "Around $2,000. "Thanks, honey." "Oh yeah, it's a limited edition, so I think it was $5,000. I thought this would suit Amy, so I bought it. I really intended to surprise you, but, well, it didn't go as planned." "Yes, it seems a bit youthful, but I can still pull it off, right?" "Of course, any bag would look good on you, Amy." "Hey, that doesn't sound like a compliment." Sorry." "Okay, I'll keep it safe. Thanks a lot." When I heard his last sigh, I could hardly hold back my laughter. In the video from that party, I saw George being urged by Grace to buy a luxury bag. He confirmed that he had bought a high-end bag and hid it in the floor of the back of the car. I found it and kept it for myself. During dinner later, George was sighing. Serves him right. A few days later, I got a call from my father. It seems like my old habits have surfaced once again. Believe it or not, I bought a new car. I've always had a thing for cars, and I've driven quite a few over the years. Apparently, on my way home from work, I pulled over at a used car dealership and spotted a gem of a car I used to admire. On a whim, I bought it right then and there. "Dad, didn't Mom get mad at you?" "Yeah, she did, but that's no biggie. Listen to this. It's a discontinued Type R, a car I've always wanted. I thought if I let this one slip, I might never get my hands on it, so I bought it on the spot. I can hardly wait to get it delivered." "Really, Dad? You never think about the consequences. What are you going to do with your current car?" "Oh, I'll give it to you. It's still in great shape and can hold its own against the flimsy cars these days." "That hatchback, right?" I suppose I have grown a bit tired of the car I've been driving." "Just sell that one. How can you enjoy driving such a weak automatic car?" That's when it hit me. "Okay, got it. I'll do that. Thanks, Dad." "Yeah, the new car arrives next week. You can pick it up then. I'll have it cleaned for you." "Okay, but this is the last of your indulgences, right, Dad?" "Don't say that. A man's dreams never end." All right, thanks, Dad." I hung up the phone and couldn't help but grin. And so, my car changed within a few days. "Amy, did you change your car? This one looks cooler than the last one." "Yeah, my dad bought a new car and gave me his old one. It's cooler than the previous one, isn't it?" "Yeah, it's cool. Lend it to me this Saturday?" "Sure, why not?" I felt like a fish had taken the bait. Then came Saturday. George, who had left with the car keys, came back immediately. "Hey, that car, what's wrong?" "It won't start. I can't drive it." "You can't drive it? Well, what's the matter? You drove it just fine yesterday, didn't you?" "That's because it's a stick shift." "So what's the problem with that?" "It's just that I only have an automatic license." "Oh, that's right. I forgot about that. This is not funny. I can't drive now." "Why is that a problem? Do you want me to drive for you?" No, no, that's not it. I mean, I don't want to spoil your day off. Really, I don't mind though. No, no, I'll figure it out. All right then, safe travels. I knew very well he couldn't. Serves him right. The car I got from my father was a stick shift. There was no problem for me since I have a manual license. However, George only had an automatic license. He legally can't drive that car and probably wouldn't know how to drive it anyway. I had already figured out that he's been taking the car on weekly dates. Despite knowing that, I still switched cars. It's my car in my name, and I can do whatever I want with it. Serves him right. Then, with just 1 week to go until our wedding, I received a message and was summoned to a designated location. Hello, my name is Amy, I greeted. Oh, Amy, thank you for coming, the other party responded. Not a problem. So, how did it go? Well, please sit down. We'll discuss everything shortly. With that, I was ushered into a meeting room and sat down. Let's first discuss your request, he began. Yes, I nodded. This was a private investigation agency. I have requested a background check on George. The subject, George Brown, was definitely in the wrong. We have secured photos and videos. Would you like to see them? Yes, please. The investigator pulled out a laptop, inserted a USB drive, and started playing a video. In it, 2 people were walking playfully, arm in arm, before entering the hotel. The date and time of the video were from a Saturday afternoon 2 weeks ago. There were also photos of them kissing, embracing, and more. Thank you. This is enough. I then received the documents and left the office. Honestly, I knew about the affair, but seeing it so blatantly presented was hard. I contacted my friends Megan and Jane and arranged to meet at a pub. I secured a private room, showed them the documents I received earlier, and we started our analysis. Oh man, this is clear-cut evidence, Megan said. This one's quite something too, Jane added. I have lost all sympathy. I'll bring him down completely. With that, I took a big gulp of my beer. Hey Amy, could you lend me these? Jane asked. Huh? What for, Jane? I was already planning to make a slideshow of the bride and groom, so it would be easy to include these. Okay, all that's left is to get ready for the big day. With that, Megan raised her beer mug and gave me a toast. To us. Let's give it our all. I was so touched that everyone was going all out for me that I felt like crying, but I held it back, and so the big day finally arrived. The day of the wedding was hectic, busy to say the least. Upon arriving at the wedding venue, I was immediately ushered into makeup, wardrobe, and other preparations. Regardless of my state of mind, everything moved along as planned. When I saw myself in the mirror donning the white wedding gown, I was brought to tears. Despite this being the very image I had once dreamed of, I never thought I'd be wearing it with this feeling. Noticing my tears, my mother gently said, "Oh dear, the bride shouldn't be crying already," as she wiped my tears away. I'm sorry, Mother, but these weren't tears of joy. The ceremony ended, and the reception began. Just before making my entrance, I caught sight of Jane, who gave me a comforting smile. George was cheerful and smiling right from the start, while I could only manage an awkward smile. The reception proceeded without a hitch as planned. Then came the moment for the bride's farewell letter to her family. The hall darkened and a spotlight fell only on me and my parents at the head table. I was handed a microphone, but instead of reading my letter, I turned to face the crowd and began to speak softly. Everyone here today, thank you very much for joining us. Normally, at this point, I should be saying goodbye to my parents and expressing my gratitude for marrying the man I love, but a stunned silence swept through the crowd as I broke from tradition. Jane, off to the side of the stage, gave me an encouraging thumbs up. The real bride is not me, I declared, causing an immediate stir among the guests. The real bride is Grace Davis, a junior from George's college years. George has admitted that it's not me but her who he truly loves. I have evidence. After speaking, the spotlight shone on one person in the crowd, and there was Grace bathed in light. Lively music started playing, and a slideshow began. Images of them holding hands, kissing, and even entering the hotel were displayed one after another. Then the music stopped, and a video of their conversation played at a loud volume. The hall was in an uproar. What's going on here? George, you owe us an explanation. Amidst the flying shouts, I handed the microphone to a pale-faced George and bowed to his parents before stepping off the stage. Megan and Jane, who had rushed over, practically dragged me away from the venue. Behind me, the situation had become an unmanageable uproar. Still in my dress, I felt a mix of relief and triumph. Jane led me to an unused green room where Megan brought my belongings and clothes. I quickly changed before leaving the wedding venue. Megan drove me home, and I was finally able to catch my breath. "We did it," she said. "Yeah, we sure did." Despite the commotion, I felt oddly exhilarated after spilling the beans at the wedding. I packed my bags and returned home. My parents scolded me when they got back, but since George was the cause of the issue, it wasn't too severe. My father took care of the aftermath. The wedding was almost over but was called off, so there were issues like returning the gifts. People understood the situation, so everything went smoothly without any significant problems. The one who had a hard time was George. His infidelity got exposed, and the wedding became a mess. As a result, his parents had to bear the entire cost. On top of that, George's boss was present, so the whole company found out about his affair. It was also discovered that George had been contacting Grace during work hours using the office email, leading to his demotion. He didn't lose his job, but the office atmosphere became unbearable, so he soon quit. As for Grace, she didn't end up with George. After causing all that commotion, they broke up. Since the engagement had been broken off after we had exchanged betrothal gifts, I asked George for compensation and other costs. George had used most of his savings on wedding preparations, so his parents had to step in and pay. Lacking any particular skills, George had trouble finding a new full-time job and ended up working part-time to pay back his debts. I also demanded compensation from Grace. With her bad reputation and being disowned by her parents, she had to pay the compensation herself. Without any savings, she borrowed money from shady loan sharks and now works in the nightlife industry to make those payments. It wasn't enough compared to the emotional pain I suffered, but well, it served them right. Thanks to my father's compassion, I was put on leave, and with my newfound free time, I decided to take a trip to Alaska. For some reason, people tend to head north in times like these. Jane had also resigned from the wedding venue, taking responsibility for her part in the commotion. Feeling a bit guilty, I invited her to join me on the trip to Alaska. With the damages I received from George, I covered the expenses. We used a ferry for a round trip as we went by car. On the return ferry, we hit it off with two guys who were bikers. We exchanged contact information and decided to meet up again in New York. The two guys who worked at the same company said they go on a road trip to Alaska on their motorcycles every year. When I got back to New York and told Megan about this, she got upset that I didn't invite her. So, it was decided that we would add one more person and organize a 3-on-3 mixer, including Jane. Even though a lot has happened, I've regained my spirit. Life throws curveballs, but I thought, well, such things happen. And with that, I decided to walk firmly towards the future. On my 40th birthday, which my husband had forgotten, I found myself at a charming French restaurant, courtesy of an invitation from my mother-in-law, Haley. As I savored each bite of my meal, Haley's thoughtful gesture brought a touch of warmth to the otherwise overlooked occasion. Unexpectedly, Caleb, who was supposed to be at work, strode into the restaurant with a woman I didn't recognize. Their demeanor left no doubt. They were a couple. A surge of irritation washed over me as Marry You by Bruno Mars began to play from a distant table. In the midst of the melody, Caleb dropped to one knee, offering the woman a bouquet and a ring, uttering those timeless words, "Will you marry me?" Amidst tears of joy, she accepted, and the surrounding patrons erupted into congratulations and adoration. Exchanging glances with Haley, I forced a smile and with a knife in hand, approached Caleb to offer my congratulations. "What a wonderful proposal. I'm genuinely envious," I remarked, trying to mask my inner turmoil. Caleb, oblivious to my sarcasm, replied, "You never did anything like this for me." Those words finally caught Caleb's attention, and his face paled in realization. "My name is Kinsley," I continued, dropping the charade. "I live with my husband Caleb and my mother-in-law Haley." I reflected on the complexities of our relationships, how Haley, despite the societal stereotypes, had been a pillar of support, while Caleb's attentiveness had waned over the years. Our marriage, once filled with promise, now bore the weight of unspoken truths and neglected celebrations. As days turned into years, Caleb's absence grew more pronounced, his excuses more flimsy. Even on our anniversary, his priorities lay elsewhere, leaving Haley and me to pick up the pieces of our shattered expectations. Yet, amidst the disillusionment, Haley remained steadfast, her unwavering support a beacon of hope in the storm of Caleb's indifference. And though Caleb attempted to mask his guilt with belated gestures of affection, the underlying truth remained unchanged. On my 40th birthday, as Caleb's message flashed across my screen, I couldn't help but feel a pang of resignation, a silent acknowledgement of the distance that had grown between us, and the birthday wishes left unsaid. I got a sinking feeling from the moment I woke up that morning, and true to my instincts, it seemed he had forgotten. Really? Forgetting not just the anniversary but your wife's birthday too, Kinsley? Haley's voice was filled with genuine sympathy. I'm so sorry for my foolish son. No, Haley, you don't have to apologize. Please don't worry about it, I replied, trying to brush off the disappointment. Haley, however, had a solution. As an apology, though it might not seem like much, I had a hunch this might happen. So I booked a table for two at a French restaurant near the station. Luckily, a cancellation opened up a spot at a good time. I thought if Caleb remembered, I'd let you two go. But since he didn't, how about we go together? It's my treat today, really. Can we? French cuisine and near the station too. That's a popular place, isn't it? I asked, surprised by the offer. You're exaggerating. It's the least I can do to make up for my son's oversight. The French place has a broad clientele and a casual vibe, and there are plenty of affordable options. I'm sorry it's not somewhere fancier. No, I'm thrilled. Thank you so much, I expressed my gratitude. While it's about time for our reservation, shall we head out? Haley suggested, and we left for the restaurant. The atmosphere at the French restaurant was indeed casual, as Haley had described, with a mix of patrons, including some flashy-looking young people. I felt relieved. An overly upscale place would have made me nervous. The young diners seemed to be enjoying themselves, chatting and taking photos with their smartphones. Perhaps they were YouTubers reviewing the restaurant. Once we were seated, Haley handed me a beautifully wrapped, fairly large box. This is a present from me, she said with a warm smile. A present? Thank you, I exclaimed, surprised. Inside was a brand new bag that I had been eyeing. Can I really accept something this nice? Thank you so much, I expressed my gratitude. Of course, Kinsley, you've always been so helpful. Please accept it as a token of my appreciation, Haley insisted. I was deeply touched by her gesture and felt blessed to have such a kind mother-in-law. Well then, shall we start the birthday celebration? Haley announced, and our dinner began. True to its reputation, every dish served at the popular French restaurant was delicious, nearly making our cheeks fall off. The courses progressed smoothly, and just as we were about to finish the main meat dish, Haley suddenly fell silent and turned pale. Haley, is something wrong? I asked, concerned. She pointed tremblingly towards the entrance behind me. Kinsley, look. Turning around, I couldn't believe my eyes. Caleb, who was supposed to be staying overnight at work, entered dressed in a stylish suit, accompanied by a young woman in a neat dress. Caleb was escorting her arm in arm. I thought I was mistaken, but no matter how many times I glanced back, it was definitely Caleb. I was so shocked that I forgot to breathe for a moment, watching the two of them. Caleb, looking happy, didn't seem to notice us at all. Kinsley, is this? Haley trailed off, her expression mirroring my own disbelief. Probably, but should we watch a little longer? It's not confirmed as cheating yet, right? I reasoned, my mind grappling with the surreal scene unfolding before us. Confused, we decided to continue our meal while discreetly keeping an eye on them. Fortunately, Caleb's table was far from ours, and he, being in high spirits, didn't notice us at all. I hoped it was all a misunderstanding, but Caleb and the woman looked unmistakably like a couple from any angle. Was Caleb cheating with her all this while, claiming he was busy with work, facing a crisis at the company, forgetting our anniversary, my birthday? Thinking about it, a deep anger welled up inside me. Suddenly, Caleb formally presented the woman with a bouquet of roses. The atmosphere shifted as Mario by Bruno Mars started playing in the restaurant. It's a surprise proposal, murmured the surrounding customers, their attention fixed on Caleb and the woman. Even a young YouTuber at the next table started filming them. Listening closely, I could hear Caleb saying something to the woman. I'm sorry I can't always be by your side, but Ellie, I want to make you happy, he said, offering her an engagement ring. Will you marry me? The woman, tearfully accepting the bouquet and ring, replied, "I'm so happy. Yes, I will." At the same time, warm applause and voices saying congratulations filled the air. The song reached its climax, heightening the atmosphere. "I can't believe it. Not just cheating, but proposing," I whispered incredulously, still trying to process what I was witnessing. Glancing at the woman Caleb called Ellie, her face brimming with pure joy upon receiving the proposal had a refined and graceful air that didn't seem to belong to someone who would knowingly get involved with another's husband. Of course, appearances can be deceiving, but still. I looked at Haley, who seemed to be waiting for my reaction. "That foolish son. We can't let this go," she declared, her eyes holding a quiet rage. "Yes, Haley," I affirmed, determination solidifying within me. Taking and using knives from the cutlery box, we held them in one hand as we made our way through the other customers towards Caleb. "Congratulations. What a beautiful proposal." "I'm so envious," I said with the biggest smile, masking the storm of emotions raging inside me. With all the composure I could muster, I thanked Caleb. Still buoyed by his obliviousness, he responded without realizing it was me. "You never did anything like this for me," he remarked. Those words finally pierced his unawareness, and he turned around cautiously. Upon seeing me smiling, his complexion paled. "Kinsley, why are you here? We came here at Haley's invitation, right?" Caleb stammered, seeking confirmation from Haley. I turned back to Haley, maintaining my smile, and she nodded in agreement. "Exactly, but I'm surprised. Who would have thought my son, who was supposed to be staying at the company because of its critical situation, who was already married to Kinsley, would be proposing to another woman? Can you explain what's going on?" I questioned, my tone controlled but firm. Upon noticing the knives we were holding, Caleb's complexion turned even paler, but he managed to stammer out an excuse. It's not what it looks like." "What do you mean, not what it looks like?" "This is, not a proposal or anything. She's a junior at work. I just wanted to thank her because she's always working hard with me. And since it's her birthday today, I was just giving her a present and celebrating." Caleb attempted to explain, his words falling flat in the tense atmosphere. His clumsy excuse only caused more speculation among the onlookers. It clearly looked like a proposal. "What are you trying to hide? He's already married, really?" Even the staff at the restaurant were puzzled by the situation. Thought it was a successful proposal, but then the wife shows up. "Looks like we've stumbled into a real-life drama. So it's emergency live streaming time," commented the YouTuber, starting to film us. Undeterred, I pressed on, focusing on the sapphire ring on the woman's left ring finger. "Interesting. A bouquet of roses and that ring, which obviously looks more expensive than the one you gave me as a birthday present for your junior, huh? Well, by the way, today is my birthday too. Did you remember that?" I interjected, watching as realization dawned on Caleb's face. "What have you been saying since earlier? A junior, a birthday present. But who are these people?" The woman confronting Caleb clearly did not know he was married. If she had known, she wouldn't have failed to recognize me as his wife. I introduced myself to her with a smile. "Nice to meet you. I'm Caleb's wife of 5 years. He's always in your care." I emphasized the word wife particularly strongly. "I am Caleb's mother. I had no idea my son was in a relationship with you while already having a wife," I stated firmly. Haley introduced herself to the woman with a full smile, but the murmur around us grew louder. His wife? So he really was married, proposing to another woman while married? That's the worst. Poor wife. Take back my congratulations. What a real-life drama. Are they shooting a drama or something? More onlookers gathered around, the woman turning pale at our introduction, muttering, "No way." Then, with tears in her eyes, she glared at Caleb. These were tears of a different kind than those of joy she had shed earlier. "What do you mean, Caleb? You never told me you had a wife." "No, it's..." Caleb stumbled over his words, attempting to explain. "You're married and you proposed to me while having a wife. What does that mean? I've always trusted you." The woman's voice trembled with hurt and betrayal. "It's not like that, Ellie. It's not an affair. I was serious. I intended to marry you. That's why before getting married to Ellie, I was planning to divorce Kinsley," Caleb confessed, stopping himself mid-sentence, realizing he had dug his own grave. "So you admit to the affair?" The mistress was also deceived. Wow, that guy is the worst on so many levels. Criticism towards Caleb from those around us grew even larger. This is definitely a showdown. Saw something incredible. The stream is hitting an all-time high. The YouTuber was excited, as if he had caught something great on camera. You were planning to divorce me and remarry, surrounded by 3 women and the focus of everyone in the restaurant, I remarked, incredulous. Caleb was sweating profusely. Suddenly, the woman stood up. In the next moment, she swung her purse full force and smacked Caleb right across the face. The sound of the hit echoed throughout the restaurant, and the previously buzzing crowd fell silent for a moment. Caleb groaned in pain, holding the spot where he was hit. At that moment, thunderous applause erupted from around, even louder than when the proposal was accepted. Way to go, serves that loser right. Wow, caught an amazing moment on camera. The woman, without looking back at Caleb, took off the ring, slammed it on the table, and ran out of the restaurant, leaving the bouquet behind as well. Caleb, having been hit with a hard purse, was still groaning in pain. "Are you okay?" I couldn't help but ask, to which Caleb looked at me with tears in his eyes. Then, as if driven by some thought, he stood up and, without caring about the onlookers, began to apologize. "Kinsley, I'm sorry. Please forgive me. What are you doing?" "I just lost my mind for a moment," Caleb pleaded, the weight of his actions finally dawning on him. "I truly love you," he said, as if those words alone would somehow make me forgive him. "Are you okay?" Caleb's attempt at concern felt hollow, considering everything he had done. What does he mean by just lost my mind for a moment after he planned to divorce me and even propose to that woman? The crowd seemed to share my sentiments, mercilessly mocking Caleb's disgrace. "You apologizing like that here is so cringy. This guy is pathetic, after proposing and all. What's he even saying? They really say you're the only one I love after cheating, huh?" People started filming Caleb with their smartphones. When I deliberately spoke in a kind tone, Caleb lifted his face, showing a relieved expression as if he thought he was forgiven. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving such a man. Looking down at Caleb, I said in a cold voice, "You were planning to divorce me, right? As you wish. I'll divorce you, and I'll be seeking alimony for adultery. I won't ask it from her. She seems to be a victim too." Caleb's expression turned from relief to utter despair. "No, please, I won't do it again." "Wait, today's your birthday, right? Then let's celebrate your birthday here, all 3 of us." "That's fine, right? I'll make it up to you. Here, take this." In a desperate attempt, Caleb offered me the bouquet and ring that the woman had left behind. I was beyond angry. I was dumbfounded. Did he really think giving me something he intended for his affair partner would make me happy? Wow, giving your wife something meant for your affair partner? How stupid can this man be? It seemed everyone around us was taken aback. The sapphire ring Caleb was offering naturally was not my birthstone. "Stop this disgrace. Prepare yourself to pay alimony to Kinsley and to that woman you were proposing to as well," Haley scolded Caleb. "Why to Ellie as well? You pretended to be single and deceived that woman. In that case, she has the right to claim compensation for the violation of her chastity rights. Don't you even know that? Furthermore, I'm disowning a scum son like you," Mom declared, her voice firm and resolute. "Mom, you're joking, right? You're abandoning your own son over this after deceiving 2 women. You think over this is going to cut it?" Caleb's pleading tone wavered as he tried to comprehend the gravity of the situation. "I'm not joking. As of today, leave the house and never show your face again. A man like you is no son of mine." Mom's words were final, leaving no room for negotiation. Caleb broke down, crying and huddled on the floor. Haley, who detested dishonesty, could truly not forgive her son's actions. There was no falsehood or hesitation in her declaration of disavowment. The drama seemed endless, and the YouTuber's broadcast was more popular than ever. The emboldened YouTuber approached Caleb with his camera, saying, "Rejected by the mistress, divorced by the wife, and disowned by the parent. You've lost everything, huh? How do you feel now?" Attempting to escape the broadcast, Caleb stood up and tried to flee the restaurant. "Wait, don't run away." Haley grabbed Caleb by the collar, but he fell backwards onto the floor with a thud. The onlookers burst into laughter, finding the situation amusing. Caleb, at a mature age, started crying like a child while lying on the floor. It must have been the pain, humiliation, and shame reaching their limits. Haley and I were troubled. We couldn't cause any more trouble for the restaurant. Surely the restaurant staff must have been thinking, what a day this has turned out to be. Stop crying, pay the bill, and let's go home, I commanded. Haley and I lifted the sobbing Caleb, paid the bill, and repeatedly apologized to the restaurant staff and other customers for the inconvenience. A grown man crying in public like a child, leaving his mother and wife to apologize for his actions, was truly pitiful. The YouTuber was the only one who said, No, you gave us something good to watch. Thank you. On the way to the municipal office in the car, Caleb, thrown into the back seat, cried his eyes out, begging for forgiveness. But both Haley in the passenger seat and I driving ignored him the entire time. After picking up divorce papers at the office, we headed home. Then Haley and I forced a reluctant Caleb to sign the divorce papers, kicked him out of Haley's house along with his belongings, and took away the keys. Caleb banged on the door, yelling, "At least let me stay tonight." But all I replied was, "I thought you were staying at the company tonight." The next morning, after staying at a hotel, when Caleb went to work, it seemed the whole office had learned about Caleb being married while proposing to his mistress, deceiving her, and his disgraceful behavior in the French restaurant. As everyone looked at him disdainfully and whispered behind his back, apparently, the YouTuber's live stream and uploaded video from the previous day quickly became a hot topic. With tweets from those present, photos of Caleb apologizing and falling, clips from the YouTube video, and other angles filmed by other customers circulating online, Caleb's lowest moments in disgrace spread across the internet. The office was abuzz with rumors, and the notorious video had many highlights from the proposal to the wife's appearance, the mistress hitting him, apologizing, divorce, and disavowment declaration, and the fall, attracting viewers who love satisfying stories, dubbing it real-life satisfying drama, with views skyrocketing. The video, titled "The Man Who Proposed to Another Woman While Having a Wife Loses Everything," even made it to compilation sites. "You're seriously messed up, man. What the heck were you thinking? Your life's over," Caleb was told by a close colleague, turning his face ashen. No wonder his disgrace was floating forever in the sea of the internet. However, Caleb's misfortune didn't end there. He was called into the president's office that very day and was fired. "Caleb, what have you done?" Caleb's affair partner Ellie turned out to be the daughter of a major client CEO. The client CEO found out about the video through rumors among employees, and after watching it became furious upon discovering his daughter had been deceived. "Our client is furious with our company. I need you to take responsibility and resign," he was told. Caleb couldn't offer any defense. The truth was he had approached Ellie knowing who she was, hoping to benefit from her status, even aspiring to possibly become the next president through her. There was no room for excuses now. Jobless. Caleb found it impossible to get hired anywhere else as his disgrace had become toy fodder on the internet, known to every company's HR department. I relentlessly filed for alimony against him, and Ellie, too, filed for damages against Caleb for deceiving her into a relationship under the pretense of being single, violating her right to chastity. "You enjoy dating me too, right? Why are you demanding alimony from me? I've already lost my job." "Give me a break," Caleb pleaded. But such an argument was futile. In their last meeting, Ellie coldly told him, "Every moment I spent happy with you is now a dark history." Under the watchful and intimidating glare of her father, the company president, eventually Caleb had to pay a hefty sum in alimony to both me and Ellie, forcing him to take on debt. He finally got a job at a labor-intensive, understaffed factory known for its harsh conditions, where he worked exhaustingly hard, hiding his face with a mask. Too busy to even come home, Caleb's lie about his work became his reality. In a male-dominated factory and too busy to find another woman, it's unlikely any woman would be interested in Caleb after such a public downfall. Now, Caleb is afraid to even show his face outside, always wearing a mask when he does. Honestly, I never imagined things would turn out this dire, but it was all Caleb's doing. The saying goes, bad news travels fast. But in today's digital age, a digital tattoo remains forever. A frightening thought. Haley apologized to me numerous times, saying, "I'm so sorry my foolish son caused such trouble. I can't believe I raised him to turn out like this." "It's not your fault, Haley. Having you on my side was truly reassuring. Thank you." It's not uncommon for some mothers to blame the wife when their son cheats, defending their son by saying it's the wife's fault for being inadequate. I'm grateful Haley wasn't like that. Yet it makes me wonder how Caleb turned out this way, despite being raised by such a respectable mother, I said. Thank you. Would you mind staying in touch? You're already like family to me, and even if you divorce Caleb, I'd like you to stay here, Haley proposed. Yes, I'd also prefer that. If you wish so. After such an exchange, we continue to live together and get along like a real family, I agreed. Later, Ellie also came to apologize. Though I didn't know he was married, I'm truly sorry for having an affair with Caleb. I was too shocked at the time to apologize. I'll also pay the alimony, she said. Please don't apologize. There's no need for alimony. You're a victim of that man too, Haley added. That's right, Ellie. You're not to blame. If anyone should apologize, it's me for raising such a foolish son. I'm sorry, Haley expressed. After our conversation, Ellie insisted on making amends and ended up treating us to coffee. Now, the three of us occasionally get together for tea, having become good friends. Nobody cares about your business. My plan comes first before anything else. My daughter's birthday parties are the biggest priority. If you don't get her gifts right away, I'll ruin your daughter's funeral. A deafening yell from my mother-in-law made me regret picking up her call, especially at a funeral. I was shaking with anger. My name is Amy. I'm a housewife in my mid-40s with a high school-aged daughter. You might think a high school girl would be fussy about makeup and fashion, rejecting clothes her mother buys, but my daughter is different. She gets along with me and gladly wears the clothes I pick out. She's a considerate and kind girl, but she's not like most girls her age. She can't lead a normal life, putting on makeup, dressing up, falling in love, and enjoying her student life. It's tough. Are you okay? How's your fever? It's a bit down. Want to eat something? I'm not hungry. I don't want anything. You shouldn't say that. If you don't eat, you won't have any energy. I'll prepare some soup for you, okay? As I worried over my bedridden daughter, I continued with the household chores. My daughter, Hannah, is sickly and suffers from a weak constitution. There's a medical term for her condition, but I won't go into details here. A week after Hannah was born, her umbilical cord fell off and blood gushed out. We rushed her to the hospital where they diagnosed her with a certain disease. Since then, despite numerous treatments, she has never fully recovered and lives with the disease. Regular hospital visits are a must, and due to the side effects of her medication, her health often deteriorates. During severe periods, she has to be hospitalized. Since becoming a high school student, she's hardly been able to attend school. By any standard, it's unlikely she'll graduate at this rate. Nevertheless, Hannah goes to school on days she's well. On those days, she tries to be like a normal high school girl, fussing over her hairstyle, which brings a smile to my face. She doesn't wear makeup because it's against school rules. A diligent and good girl, even when suffering from illness, she strives to live with a cheerful spirit. I am proud to have a daughter like her. My husband is equally smitten with our daughter. If she becomes bedridden, he's quick to say, I'll take the day off work and look after her. Of course, I have to give him a little push and send him off to work. We need him to keep bringing home the bacon, or we'll fall into a financial crisis. When I assure him that I'll take good care of Hannah, he reluctantly heads off to work. That's our everyday life. We're worried about our daughter, but our family is in good spirits, and I have a strong bond with my husband. I was blessed, living a peaceful life, but there was one person who wasn't pleased with our situation. Hannah is running a fever again. It's just pitiful. I wonder who she takes after. Mother-in-law, what brings you here today? What's the matter? Can't a mother visit her son's home? You're such a cold-hearted daughter-in-law. A frail granddaughter and a demon for a daughter-in-law. Lord, if I could only have the post-retirement years that I dreamed of. Yes, the person who is unhappy with our household is my mother-in-law. She frequently visits our home, which is just 3 bus stops away, and constantly spews her classic passive-aggressive remarks. She's enjoyed tormenting me ever since we got married. Now she's also unpleasant towards Hannah. Doesn't she find her own granddaughter adorable? My son never ran a fever this frequently. Amy, isn't this something from your side of the family? Mother-in-law, as I've explained countless times, Hannah's illness isn't hereditary. No, I'm sure your family's genes are playing a role here. I always knew taking you into our family was a bad idea. My mother-in-law seems fixated on belittling my family lineage. and her snide remarks never end. Eventually, I've grown accustomed to dealing with her, realizing that arguing is a waste of time. I let out a sigh, grabbed the freshly made soup, and headed to Hannah's room. Hey, I'm not finished talking yet. I could hear her yelling from behind, but I just ignored her. Once I entered Hannah's room, her voice became faint. Grandma came over again, didn't she? Right, same old mother-in-law bashing. No helping it, I guess. Grandma's just... My daughter Hannah let out a raised smile, but I know she understands. There's no way she can't hear my mother-in-law's loud voice, yet Hannah never speaks ill of her grandmother. On the contrary, she'll make a guilty face and say, "I'm sorry, Mom. It's because of me." Hannah, it's not your fault at all. She's not at fault in the slightest, yet Hannah apologizes to me. I don't want her to feel this way, so my husband and I always greet her with smiles. We create a cheerful atmosphere, not wanting her to dwell on negative thoughts, but my mother-in-law destroys that atmosphere in an instant. As I hugged Hannah tightly, I bit my lip, feeling her thin body so unlike a healthy high school girl. Feeling Hannah's warmth, I felt a sense of relief but also realized that I must start keeping a distance from my mother-in-law. My days are occupied with taking care of my frail daughter, and on the rare days she goes to school, I worry non-stop. I took back our house keys from my meddling mother-in-law. Days were filled with endless quarrels with her, my husband working hard for our beloved family, and my laughing daughter Hannah. Despite everything, they were peaceful days, and I thought they would last forever. I don't know why I believed that. There's no such thing as forever. Everything that begins must also end. On a rainy summer day, Hannah fell ill amidst the unrelenting heat. The doctor looked grim as he reviewed the test results. I held my trembling daughter in my arms, and then she was admitted to the hospital. Summer vacation had begun, and by the time it ended, Hannah was still in the hospital, still receiving treatment. Those were incredibly difficult and painful days. Hannah looked like she was suffering so much. Even so, I believed she would recover. She would surely get better. More than anything, Hannah herself believed that. But Hannah passed away. "Dad, Mom, I love you." Those were her last words before she embarked on her far-off journey. Looking up at the dreary sky as the autumn rain continued to pour, I was in tears. The tears wouldn't stop. It was raining during the funeral too. It felt like the sky was crying for me as I was too busy to even shed tears. The tears I shed on the day Hannah passed away have now dried up. I was that busy. My husband too had taken time off work and was rushing around. I was swamped with contacting relatives and Hannah's school. That's the only way I could cope. I couldn't stand it unless I was busy. The loss I felt from losing Hannah was that immense. Many people came to the funeral in the rain. Even though she didn't go to school much, many of her friends came to pay their respects, and they all cried. There were kids who screamed and cried out in disbelief. Some broke down, crying, saying they would love her forever. Watching them, I felt a perverse sense of happiness. Everyone loved Hannah. Knowing that she was a child who was so loved, I couldn't help but feel happy. Many people spoke to me, and they all praised Hannah. My parents hugged me as they cried, and I couldn't help but break down in tears. It was then that my phone, which was in the pocket of my black funeral attire, vibrated. I had my phone on me in case someone needed directions to the funeral, so I quickly stepped away from my seat and looked at the screen. The caller ID showed it was my mother-in-law. My father-in-law had already passed away, and although I had contacted my mother-in-law, she hadn't come to the hospital during Hannah's final moments, claiming it was impossible because she was far away. She said she couldn't attend the funeral today either because she had something important to do. But I wondered if she might have changed her mind and wanted to say goodbye to her grandchild. So I answered the phone, but I instantly regretted it. "Amy, what on earth are you doing?" She yelled at me. "Huh? I'm at Hannah's funeral. Stop joking around and get over here right now to your place." "That's impossible. What are you talking about?" "Right back at you. I told you I had something important to do today, didn't I? Hurry back and help me out. I don't have anything more important than my daughter's funeral. Nobody cares about your business. My plan comes first before anything else." What on earth is she talking about? As a mother, my daughter's funeral is the most important thing right now, and it's wrong of my mother-in-law not to even care about her grandchild's funeral. My mother-in-law had been adamant about not going to the funeral, no matter what my husband said. "Why do I have to help you with your stuff? If it's more important than your granddaughter's funeral, why don't you handle it yourself? You're my daughter-in-law. You're supposed to help me." I don't understand what you mean. I'm celebrating my super precious daughter's birthday. There's nothing more important than this in the world. Excuse me, I couldn't help but take an extraordinarily long time to respond. What did you just say? My daughter is coming home after such a long time, and coincidentally, it's her birthday too. We have to celebrate it grandly, don't we? Like I care. So, I need to thoroughly clean my house and prepare a huge feast. Come over here fast. But as I said, I'm in the middle of a funeral right now. I don't care about that. My daughter is more important than my granddaughter. Also, bring a present with a budget of over $500. Hurry up. If you don't bring any gift right now, I'll ruin your funeral. Click. I hung up on her. I couldn't stand to listen any longer. If I had to hear any more from my mother-in-law, I felt like I'd march over there with a baseball bat. Just how selfish can she be? Prioritizing her daughter over her granddaughter at a time like this? I'm not saying they should be compared, but to say her daughter's birthday is more important than Hannah's funeral. She must be kidding. I told my husband, Mike, everything that had happened, and we decided to ignore her. Mike tried to contact Sandy, but either she was still on the plane or we just couldn't reach her. Pulling myself together and regaining my composure, I returned to shedding tears at my daughter's funeral. The day after the funeral, Sandy visited our place. She had read Mike's email and flew here right away. She thought it would be faster to come home than to try to get in touch while traveling from where she lives, but it took her a long time to get here. In the end, she didn't make it to the funeral. Bowing her head in apology after paying her respects at the altar, she shared various stories with us. Stories I had never heard before about my daughter and Sandy, whom we hardly ever got a chance to see. Listening to them, I found myself reminiscing about my daughter when she was little, and once again, I started to cry. In the end, my mother-in-law didn't even bother to come to pay her respects. My sister-in-law, Sandy, deeply bowed her head and apologized for this. I'll do something about my mom, she said before leaving, but I wondered what she meant by that. A few days later, the reality that my daughter was gone still hadn't sunk in, and I found myself in her room, holding on to the memories she left behind. I gently stroked her study desk. The room, untouched since her death, was filled with so many memories of her. Just as I felt like I was about to cry again, the doorbell rang unexpectedly. Startled, I quickly wiped away my tears and looked at the monitor. To my surprise, it was my mother-in-law, the same woman who had injured both my husband and me with her inappropriate remarks on the day of the funeral. She hadn't come to pay her respects and hadn't shown up in the days since. What does she want now? I had no intention of opening the door, so I responded via the intercom. What can I do for you, mother-in-law? Oh, Amy, please help me, she said. Her unexpected plea for help left me puzzled. I might end up joining my granddaughter if this keeps up. Please help me, she exclaimed, saying something unthinkable. Wondering what was going on, I reluctantly opened the front door and my mother-in-law fell in. What's going on? Help me, my daughter, my daughter. While I was trying to understand what she was saying, a figure suddenly came into view. Well, here you are, Mom, the figure said. It was Sandy. She had a smiling face, but it gave off a silent pressure. She's here, huh? What? Seeing the pale face of my mother-in-law, who screamed at the sight of Sandy, I was completely stunned. What on earth is happening? Oh, come on, don't say things like she's here. It's rude. See, Mom, it's your cute daughter, right? No, not cute at all. What in the world is going on? Just the other day, she was talking about her daughter's birthday being more important than my daughter's funeral. What happened in just a matter of a few days? While I stood there bewildered, Sandy handed something to our mother-in-law. Don't worry, the next part is much easier. Here, you just need to put this on your head and go about your life. Saying this, Sandy put it on my mother-in-law's head. She shook it off and hid behind me. I'm not wearing that. Why not? People will think I'm a weirdo if I walk around with that on my head. Wondering what on earth it was, I looked at the object that had fallen to the floor. It was a mask, not the kind you would see at a fair, but something else. A mask that you might see worn by a tribe living deep in Africa during some strange ritual, the kind of thing a shaman might like. And why does Sandy have something like this? Why put it on my mother-in-law's head? This mask is used for fortune-telling, Sandy explained. Where I live, Sandy explained in response to my question, this mask has an interesting history. It's a great craft work that has been passed down since ancient times. I was stunned. Well, yeah, it looks like it. So you're going to put this mask on top of my mother-in-law's head, not on her face? Right, if it's on her face, she wouldn't be able to see anything. This isn't an ordinary mask with holes for the eyes. If it did have holes, I wouldn't mind letting her wear it on her face. And what happens when she puts it on? Oh, you didn't know? This mask has a demon repelling effect. As if I would know about such an effect. A demon repellent, exactly, no matter how hard you think about it. She's clearly possessed by a demon, right? Sandy pointed at my mother-in-law. Her own daughter saying such a thing. So this is what she meant by, I'll do something about my mom. If she wears this for a few days, I think she'll definitely become a normal human being with morals. I've been trying several methods for the past few days. A different method. I had her wear a necklace of garlic and run around the neighborhood. Isn't that for vampires, not demons? Or are vampires also demons? I'm not quite sure, but oh well. But what's with the running? Is that why my mother-in-law's been looking so worn out? That must have smelled terrible. Garlic isn't that bad unless you cut it open. You know that's not really the point, but that's beside the point. The issue is that she wore that and spent a few days running. I really wish I could have seen that. Do you want to see the pictures? Oh yes, please. Sandy has pictures. What a pro. You guys, what are you so happy about? Show a little more sympathy for me. My mother-in-law started to complain as Sandy and I were laughing and looking at the pictures. I almost forgot she was here. Why do we have to show sympathy for you? Sandy looked up from her phone and glared at her mother-in-law. Why? Because you're my daughter. If you want sympathy from your daughter, why don't you become a person deserving of sympathy? Do you think there's anyone else as sincere as I am? My mother-in-law retorted. Where's the good in someone who dismisses their grandchild's funeral as whatever? Sandy exclaimed, her mouth wide open in anger. When I rushed home for my niece's funeral, I found you just lying at home. When I asked if the funeral was over, you boldly said you didn't go. I thought maybe you were sick, but you were just doing push-ups to show how fit you were. Push-ups? I echoed in disbelief. She wouldn't even go light an incense at the wake. I don't care about my birthday. Screw that, Sandy continued. What are you talking about? It's a parent's duty to celebrate their child's birthday. I've never heard of a grandmother prioritizing her daughter's birthday over her grandchild's funeral. The shouting match grew so intense that both Sandy and my mother-in-law were panting heavily. That's why I'm saying we need to cleanse this rotten character of yours as if you've been possessed by a demon, and start over. Sandy cried out, tears suddenly rolling down her cheeks. It's pitiful that Hannah had a grandmother like you. Her words stuck in my throat. Sandy loved my daughter too. Even if the time they spent together was short, there was no doubt that Sandy loved her. Holding back the tears that threatened to spill, I stared hard at my mother-in-law. She faltered for a moment under my gaze. Mother-in-law, I said firmly, what did you do for my daughter when she was alive? And I'm not talking about giving her stuff. You didn't even care about her, did you? So what if I didn't? She snapped. There's no way I could have doted on such a frail child just because she's my granddaughter. But my daughter adored you, I said quietly. At my unexpected words, my mother-in-law was at a loss. I told her to wait a moment and went back into the house. From my daughter's room, I took something and returned to my mother-in-law, who was still at the entrance. Then I handed her a letter. What's this? She asked, looking puzzled. It's a letter from my daughter to you. My mother-in-law looked back and forth in surprise between me and the letter. In my hand was a letter certainly addressed to Grandma in my daughter's handwriting. She tentatively opened it and began to read. As she read, her eyes widened, and before we knew it, tears were welling up. No, I didn't do anything for Hannah, she whispered, her voice breaking. I was never kind to her or showed her love. Crying out, my mother-in-law collapsed to the ground on her knees. Picking up the letter that had fallen from her hand, my sister-in-law also read it. Sorry for not being a healthy granddaughter. I'll try to be stronger, so don't hate me. I love you, Grandma. Hannah. Even though she was such an unloving old woman, Hannah was a kind child. Yes, she truly was, I murmured, my sister-in-law nodding with tears streaming down her face. Tears wouldn't stop from my eyes either. I'm sorry for being such a terrible grandmother. I'm sorry. Forgive me, Hannah, my mother-in-law sobbed, bowing deeply on the ground. The three of us cried together for a long time. When my husband came home to find us in tears, he was taken aback. My sister-in-law briefly explained, then took my mother-in-law home. Despite her shaky steps, my mother-in-law clutched Hannah's letter tightly. A few days later, my mother-in-law expressed her wish to pay respects at Hannah's memorial portrait. I firmly declined but told her it would be fine for her to visit the grave after the burial service. Once the mourning period concluded, over the phone she said quietly, "I'm sorry." No matter how much she reflects and regrets, I can't forgive her cold attitude toward Hannah while she was alive, and certainly not her behavior on the day of the funeral. I plan to continue being almost entirely estranged from her, and I think my mother-in-law has sensed that. The pushy and slay old woman she once was is nowhere to be seen anymore. My sister-in-law returned overseas, and my husband keeps contact with my mother-in-law to a bare minimum. My mother-in-law now leads a lonely life in her old age, having developed dementia. Luckily, we quickly found a retirement home for her, and now she lives there. Of course, I don't visit her, and my husband only goes when it's necessary. According to him, my mother-in-law keeps murmuring, I'm sorry, Hannah." Even hearing that, I feel nothing. No matter how many years have passed, I can't forgive her, and I don't even want to. But then I think of Hannah, and my gaze falls on a picture of her smiling happily. If it were Hannah, that kind girl, she probably would have forgiven my mother-in-law. No, she probably never even held a grudge in the first place. She was such a kind child. "Mom, I love you." I thought I heard her voice and gently wiped my eyes.
Hello, I'm Kathleen, and I carry a vivid memory from a few months back that I feel compelled to share. It's a story about recognizing toxic behavior and the importance of standing up against it. I'm 31, and my immediate family includes my 34-year-old husband, Anthony, and our kitten. Anthony and I, high school sweethearts, tied the knot at a young age despite attending colleges in different states. Our bond remains strong, and next month we'll celebrate our 13th year together. Regrettably, my mother-in-law, Carol, won't be joining us. From the start, Carol harbored a dislike for me. With 2 sons, she had always indulged and spoiled them, considering no one worthy of her precious boys. Anthony and his older brother, David, were oblivious to her controlling and manipulative nature. As they grew, Carol's overbearing tendencies became problematic, forbidding her teenage sons from dating or socializing with girls outside of school. Despite evident signs, Anthony and David remained enamored with their mother's love, failing to recognize her control. Over time, David began rebelling against Carol's rules, which led to conflicts, even threats against his then-girlfriend, Lauren, now his wife. David, however, stood firm, refusing to succumb to Carol's influence. Gradually, both brothers distanced themselves from Carol. Anthony, while acknowledging his brother's actions, believed they were excessive. In the early stages of our relationship, I refrained from commenting to avoid conflicts. Little did I know that Carol would redirect her efforts toward me, employing every means possible to dismantle our relationship. She orchestrated an elaborate Venice tour during prom week to prevent us from attending together. Despite Anthony's pleas to cancel the trip, it was the only time he went against his mother's wishes. Each time Carol called me, unleashing her barrage of insults and deeming me unworthy. Anthony remained passive, offering no defense. Carol even went so far as to predict that I would be unfaithful when I headed off to college. As we both secured spots in different colleges across states, Anthony succumbed to the pressure, leading us to take a brief break. During this hiatus, Carol took advantage of the situation, celebrating our apparent breakup. Unexpectedly, Anthony reconciled with me, infuriating Carol. In response, she intensified her harassment and humiliation, seizing every opportunity to make my life miserable. In an attempt to address the issue, I approached Anthony, expressing my grievances. "Anthony, your mother is consistently disrespectful towards me. Despite my efforts to be friendly and welcoming, she berates me and hurls insults. I'm growing weary of her behavior, and you need to address it." Anthony responded dismissively, defending his mother. "Kathleen, you know my mother is a bit sensitive after what happened with David. She fears losing me as well and genuinely believes she's looking out for my future. Don't take her words to heart." Infuriated, I pressed further. So you're okay with how Carol treats me? Remember, she tried to break us up. Anthony justified Carol's actions, claiming she was trying to prevent potential heartbreak, leaving me frustrated. I confronted him about it. She played on your insecurities to end our relationship. How can you justify that despite my efforts to make him see my perspective? Anthony remained unconvinced. He insisted that Carol could do no wrong and accused me of falsely accusing her. Even David, attempting to reason with Anthony, faced resistance. Anthony accused David of betraying their mother, creating an awkward and strained dynamic between the two brothers. David ultimately married Amy, his high school sweetheart, the same person Carol had tried to scare off. Although David invited me to the wedding, he deliberately omitted to inform Carol, leading to her emotional distress. Carol desperately attempted to persuade Anthony to intervene and secure an invitation for her. Anthony, known for being a mama's boy, engaged in a heated argument with David about Carol. Initially reluctant to attend the wedding to support Carol, Anthony faced my challenge, questioning whether boycotting the event was justified given Carol's history with David and Amy. I pointed out Carol's persistent complaints about Amy supposedly taking David away from her during high school, attempting to defuse the situation. I asserted that it was a misunderstanding, acknowledging that mothers can sometimes become overly involved. I emphasized the importance of family, urging everyone to mend bridges and refrain from holding grudges. I reminded Anthony that the decision of whom to invite to the wedding rested with David and Amy. I emphasized the need to respect their autonomy, discouraging any requests. Despite my inability to attend the wedding, I expressed my concern that they might be making a mistake. Planning to RSVP the following day in the hope of influencing their decision, highlighting the potential consequences. I warned Anthony that not attending the wedding might result in being cut off by David and Amy, just as they had done with Carol. After much deliberation, Anthony eventually agreed to attend the wedding. I felt optimistic that this decision might bring positive change, allowing David and Amy to enjoy their happiness without interference from Carol. They chose to organize the wedding far away to prevent Carol from showing up. However, Carol's reaction was intense when Anthony showed her pictures from the wedding. She cried on his shoulders and insisted on his company for a month. Anthony even canceled our planned Colorado trip to make amends with her. Witnessing how he handled the situation left me feeling pretty heartbroken. Despite the certainty that our love ran deep, breaking up was no longer an option. My only hope was that Anthony would come to his senses regarding Carol's troubling behavior. Fast forward 3 years, and Anthony finally proposed to me. Carol, displeased, put on a facade of happiness for him. Yet, I later discovered she had refused to give him her engagement ring, convinced that I was a gold digger and our marriage wouldn't last. I loved the ring Anthony chose for me, a testament to our financial independence as engineers. Carol's jewelry was the last thing I desired. Wedding planning became a nightmare as Carol inserted herself into every aspect, from cake tasting to venue selection. Disapproving of my vintage theme, she deemed it boring and tacky. Despite my indifference, Anthony and I carefully considered every decision. Frustrated, I confronted him, insisting that his mom needed to give us space. This is getting ridiculous. We're the ones getting married, and your mom needs to let us decide on our own. I don't need her input on everything. She hates every decision I make. You need to tell her to back off. Anthony defended his mother, claiming she wanted the best for us, tired of this excuse. I argued that she deserved to be uninvited from David's wedding due to her interference. Though we welcomed her presence, her negative remarks about my choices were unacceptable. This was our wedding, and she already had hers. After much coaxing, Anthony finally asked Carol to back off. Though she threw a fit, she toned it down. Unfortunately, Anthony prioritized her choices and made several changes. Initially sad, I recognized it was also his day and chose to go along in some places to avoid further trouble. I had not yet found the courage to stand up for myself, and Anthony seemed lost in a fog, unable to think clearly. The wedding turned into another disaster when Carol showed up in a white dress so sparkly and lacy that it resembled a bridal gown. Fortunately, Anthony recognized the issue and insisted she changed before the ceremony. Feigning ignorance, Carol claimed she didn't have another dress. However, my maid of honor and best friend came to the rescue, producing a pale blue gown that fit Carol perfectly. Anticipating her intention to wear white, I had purchased a decent dress for her on my dime. With no excuses left, Carol had to wear the provided dress. During the reception, she delivered tearful speeches about losing her children to awful women, targeting both me and Lauren, who were avoiding her. Carol also disparaged our relationship, portraying herself as the victimized mother-in-law. The wedding attendees looked uncomfortable, and even her own family was mortified. My maid of honor swiftly took the microphone, redirecting the atmosphere. On our honeymoon, Carol incessantly called us, reaching out to Anthony and crying about feeling lonely. She bombarded us with 5 calls a day, and when unable to reach Anthony, she called me, accusing me of taking her son away. Just a month after the wedding, she insisted that no matter what I did, he would always choose her over me, asserting that he would never love me more than his mom. Attempting to reason with her, I explained that we were on our honeymoon and she needed to stop calling us so frequently. When Anthony's phone died, he went back to our room to charge it, emphasizing that there was no intention of keeping him away from her. Kathleen, it's clear to me how driven you are by greed. Your sole focus is on extracting money from him, ignoring the fact that he supports me financially and genuinely cares for me, something he's been doing since his father passed away a decade ago. Carol, you may be his mother, and it's natural for him to support you. But I am financially stable on my own and have no interest in his money. Stop falsely accusing me of trying to exploit him. Enough with your baseless accusations. You might deceive him, but I see through your intentions. Hand over the phone to my husband. I need to speak with him urgently. During our honeymoon, I endured numerous conversations like this with Kathleen. When we returned home, dealing with her incessant crying became a daily struggle, all because we didn't take her along. Even now, she scolded my husband for going without her. Anthony, as always, did his best to console his mother, overlooking my concerns. I was gradually finding my voice to stand up for myself. Things were relatively stable until a few months ago when I discovered I was pregnant with our first child. Excitement filled us, and Anthony wanted to share the news with Carol immediately. Despite my reservations, I agreed. However, instead of joy, Carol reacted with tears and accusations. She accused me of trapping him with a baby, insinuating that I had cheated on Anthony. Despite my husband's attempts to calm her, she remained obstinate. I grew weary of her dramatic outbursts, which persisted for 3 weeks before she decided to visit us. Carol arrived unannounced, seemingly happy about our baby, showering me with gifts. Anthony was relieved, thinking Carol had finally accepted our child. The truth, however, was far from that. I felt a sense of unease about Carol's newfound happiness and decided to approach the situation cautiously. In the evening, she offered to make us tea, claiming it would help warm me up as the weather was getting chilly. Anthony appreciated her gesture, giving me a triumphant look as if to say, "I told you so." Choosing not to dismiss my concerns, I excused myself and went to the kitchen to check on Carol. I'd observed her preparing tea and adding something from a carton. Both my husband and I are lactose intolerant, using a specific brand of oat milk for our tea. However, Carol was using a different carton that caught my attention. She used oat milk for 1 cup, but opted for the suspicious carton for the other. Initially, I assumed she was merely using a different type of vegan milk for variety. Despite this, my unease persisted when she handed me the suspicious mug. Feeling a sudden panic, I impulsively switched my husband's cup with mine when they weren't looking. We drank tea, and throughout the evening, Carol seemed to smirk at me from across the couch. Fortunately, nothing untoward happened for the remainder of the night. However, in the early hours of dawn, I heard my husband vomiting in the bathroom. He made several trips, and the noise woke me up. After a while, I saw him lying on the living room couch in pain. Concerned, I approached him and inquired about his condition. Carol, emerging from her room, looked worried at the sight of Anthony's distress, breaking into an ugly cry. It suddenly dawned on me. This woman had used cow milk in our tea. I was prepared to confront her, but before doing so, I had to rush Anthony to the hospital. I urgently dialed 911, requesting an ambulance for Anthony, who was experiencing severe stomach pain and was on the brink of passing out. At the hospital, we waited for the medication to take effect. When the doctor arrived for a consultation with Anthony, I brought Carol along. In the presence of both Anthony and the doctor, I coerced Carol into confessing to everything. She was concerned about her son, so getting her to confess wasn't a challenge. The doctor expressed disappointment and informed us that Anthony needed to be hospitalized for a day. After the doctors left, Anthony seemed troubled. The fog in his mind began to clear, and he questioned Carol about why she used milk in his tea, knowing about his allergy. He pointed out that their household didn't even have cow milk, and I didn't consume it either. Carol insisted that she didn't intend to harm Anthony, claiming she was aware of his milk allergy. Anthony was perplexed and demanded an explanation. Carol continued sobbing in a corner, prompting me to reveal the truth. I explained that Carol brought cow milk into their home, not for Anthony, but for me. It was not meant for him to consume, and I had switched their cups when Carol wasn't looking, prioritizing the health of our child. It turned out to be the right decision. Anthony, shocked and disbelieving, accused me of lying. He couldn't fathom why Carol would want to hurt him and our child. I urged him to ask Carol for an explanation, emphasizing that I had taken precautions to safeguard our child's health. Carol erupted into a cacophony of wails and screams, reaching such a fever pitch that a nurse had to usher her out, a move no one objected to at that point. Anthony, visibly shaken and traumatized by Carol's actions, apologized profusely and pledged to keep her out of our lives. Witnessing Anthony's pain, I offered comfort as best I could and took him home the following day. During his hospital stay, I seized the opportunity to change the locks on our house. Anthony called Carol, firmly informing her that we were cutting all contact with her for good. This decision triggered more cries and pleas from her. Insisting that as his mother, he couldn't sever ties, Anthony resolutely rejected her pleas, highlighting how her actions had harmed our family. He emphasized that he wouldn't tolerate it any longer. Acknowledging that he had been blind to her detrimental influence, Carol confessed her motivations, admitting that she sought to hurt me and make me suffer because she felt neglected. Anthony, unyielding, deemed her actions unforgivable, especially considering the potential harm if I had consumed the tea she prepared. Expressing his disgust, Anthony firmly rejected her presence and cut off all communication. We changed the locks to prevent her from entering our home, and when she attempted to force her way in, we called the authorities, blocking her on phones and social media. We informed our extended family about the situation, and their unanimous disapproval further isolated Carol. After discussing her actions and reviewing evidence from security cameras and her confession to the doctor, we successfully obtained a restraining order against her. Though she tried to gather information from our extended family, none entertained her demands. We withdrew financial support, prompting her to secure a job at Walmart to support herself. Gradually rebuilding our relationship with David and Lauren, Anthony, and David resolved their issues through a heart-to-heart conversation. Lauren and I, already good friends, strengthened our bond further. My husband, having come to his senses, shielded me from Carol's influence, and we eagerly anticipated the arrival of our child, with an agreement not to allow Carol any relationship with our future family. Enjoying the newfound peace in our household after Carol's departure, we considered moving to David City after our child's birth. Uncertain about the future, we remained positive that we would overcome any challenges together.
How much did you inherit? Simon's question came out of nowhere, catching me off guard on the night of my father's funeral. I was still reeling from my grief when he asked, "I heard your father had an inheritance of $3 million. So once again, how much did you get? The inquiry gave me an unsettling feeling. Distraught and desperate to avoid further tension, I lied. Nothing. I didn't inherit anything. It seems my sister and mother are the ones who received it. Simon's face lit up with a triumphant grin. I knew it. Your parents always said you were incompetent and that they didn't care about you. I'm glad my instincts were right. What? I could barely process his words. I want a divorce, he declared coldly. I can't be with someone who's poor now. I've already found someone else. I need you out of my life. With that, Simon had me sign the divorce papers. His family mocked me for my misery, but they were mistaken. They could never understand how relieved I felt to be rid of Simon's betrayal. My name is Jane. I come from a family of 4 with a younger sister named Kim. From a young age, Kim and I never got along. My mother, Anne, always sided with Kim, leaving me feeling isolated, though I eventually became accustomed to it. My father, Dan, was the only one who seemed to care, but his demanding job kept him away from home, leaving me alone with my feelings of abandonment. Even as an adult, my situation remained unchanged. I wasn't allowed to attend college due to tuition fees. Yet, when Kim was set to enroll in a private college, my mother insisted that it would be a waste not to send her despite my own lack of educational opportunities. Jane, you're not sharp or smart like Kim. It's only right that you support her education and contribute to the household. It's what any responsible older sister would do, my mother said, as if it were common sense. Her words stung deeply, and tears streamed down my face. Kim looked at me with disdain, adding, "It's your own fault, you're incompetent. You're uglier and less successful than me, so you should try harder. If you can't do that, you're worthless." The toxicity of my family environment drove me to leave home once I started working. Living alone wasn't difficult for me. It felt liberating. Initially, my father sent me a small amount of money to help out, but after 6 months, that stopped. Instead, I received a letter from my mother accusing me of theft. "Your father was sending you money without our permission. You have no right to it because you haven't contributed to Kim's tuition or supported us. I'll be sending you an invoice for the total amount you received. Make sure to refund it. Stop being a thief." My mother's resentment was clear, and she sent an invoice calculated to cover the exact amount of alimony, demanding repayment for the money I had received from my father. I was deeply uncomfortable discussing or debating the matter any further, so I complied with my mother's demands, sent the money, and quietly moved to a new apartment. A few years later, I married Simon, whom I met at work. Determined to sever ties with my past, I decided to inform my parents about my marriage. When I returned to their house, I was struck by how much my father had aged. The once industrious man now looked frail and bent, struggling even to stand. "Oh, you're back," my mother remarked with disdain. "I wonder what this ungrateful daughter, who never sends any money home, wants?" When I asked about my father's condition, my mother sneered. "He injured his back about a year ago and can't work anymore. Now he just stays at home and gets in my way. He's as useless as you are, Jane." Simon was taken aback by my mother's harsh words, but his attention quickly shifted when he saw my sister Kim. "Wow, you're Jane's sister. You're stunning. I can hardly believe you two are related." Kim, who had grown more self-centered since starting college, now sported flashy clothes and a vibrant hair color that seemed inappropriate for her age. Despite being old enough to have graduated, she still seemed like a student, which reflected her lack of seriousness about her studies. "This guy is your husband, Jane," Kim said, eyeing Simon with feigned sweetness. "He's quite handsome and seems way too good for you. I almost feel sorry for him." Kim deliberately flirted with Simon, her touches and compliments clearly meant to show off. It pained me to see Simon so delighted by Kim's attention, but I resolved to stay focused on my plans. I was marrying Simon, and that was final. "I'm going to cut ties with all of you," I declared. "Well, if you're going to do that, could you at least wait until I've finished taking care of your father?" My mother replied, barely looking up from her snacks. "I need to look after him. But honestly, I don't want to, and I definitely don't want Kim to deal with it either. It's her college life, after all. It would be a shame to distract her with such a bothersome task. You should be responsible for taking care of your father, Jane. Both of you are incompetent, so you'll get along just fine." Her words infuriated me, but I knew I couldn't ignore my father's needs. From that day forward, I began visiting my parents' house frequently to care for him. As I took on this responsibility, I discovered that neither my mother nor Kim worked. Kim didn't have a part-time job, and my mother had been a stay-at-home since my father's collapse. Yet they frequently dined out and shopped extravagantly. To my shock, they had even taken my father's bankbook without his permission, spending his savings as if it were their own. My father was aware of their actions but chose to remain silent. "Dad, they'll keep doing this unless we do something about it. Why didn't you tell me sooner?" "If I had, they would never admit they were wrong or apologize," he said. "I didn't want to burden you further." Despite everything, my father had always worked tirelessly for the family and was the only one who truly cared for me. I wanted to help him in any way I could. Just as I was contemplating how to address the situation, I received a call from the hospital where my father had been admitted after his collapse. I rushed to my parents' house before heading to the hospital. My mother and sister were lounging on the couch, absorbed in the TV, showing no sign of worry when the hospital called me. "Father collapsed, didn't he?" I asked, exasperated. "Oh, it's an exaggeration to say he collapsed," my mother replied dismissively. "He just fell in the hallway and hit his head. The ambulance took him to the hospital. I'll leave the rest to you. But we need to go to the hospital. I'm worried about Father," I insisted. "Shut up," she snapped. "If he doesn't make it, the insurance will cover it. Why are you getting so emotional?" My mother's coldness and her indifference made me sick. I left them behind and rushed to the hospital. At the hospital, I found my father lying in bed, hooked up to various tubes and barely conscious. As his condition worsened, he managed to notice me and murmured faintly, "I'm sorry for being so sudden. I must be being punished. I wasn't a good father because I couldn't protect you from our family." With those final words, my father closed his eyes. "I don't care about that, Dad. I love you. Please get well soon," I pleaded, holding his hand tightly, but he never responded. A week later, a lawyer contacted me regarding my father's will. He informed me that I was named as the beneficiary of an inheritance. According to the will, I was to inherit $3 million. I was stunned. It turned out that my father had hidden another bank book, separate from the one my mother had taken, which held the $3 million. He had also left a note specifying that this information should not be shared with any other family members. It seemed that this was his way of ensuring my future even after he was gone. Overwhelmed by my father's unexpected kindness, I made my way back to my parents' house to retrieve the hidden bank book. As I arrived, my mother and sister were waiting at the front door, their stances commanding and imperious. "What are you doing here now?" my mother demanded. "Came to scavenge things now that Dan's dead? How despicable. Everything here, the house, the car, belongs to me and Kim. Don't act like a thief." I knew better than to discuss my inheritance with them, especially given their unwillingness to listen. "I'm here to collect Father's memorabilia, and shouldn't I be entitled to at least a small share of the inheritance?" Without missing a beat, my mother produced a document and waved it in front of me. It was another will, supposedly written by my father, but the handwriting was unmistakably Kim's, not my father's distinctive script. The will claimed that my mother and sister would inherit all of my father's estate. "I can't make out much of this since Kim's handwriting is so poor," I said, struggling to understand the document. "That doesn't matter," my mother replied coldly. "This is the will, and it's already been shared with all our relatives and neighbors. It's too late for you to contest it now." My mother refused to let me enter the house, fully aware that I knew the will was a forgery. Defeated, I left and returned home. Simon was waiting for me, concern etched on his face. "Were you at your parents' house? If you told me, I would have gone with you. It's a shame I missed seeing Kim." I was taken aback. "Why are you so interested, and what does any of this have to do with you, Simon?" "I went to retrieve my father's inheritance, but my mother and sister kicked me out of the house." "How much did you all inherit from your father?" Simon asked me, curiosity piqued. "I'm not sure of the total amount, but the house, land, and everything else were in his name. So it must be quite substantial," I replied. "I see," Simon said, pressing further. "And how much of the inheritance do you get, Jane?" I hesitated, knowing I shouldn't reveal the truth. My instincts told me there was no inheritance for me. Everything was going to be divided between my mother and sister. Simon's face darkened as he suddenly retrieved the divorce papers from his room and thrust them in front of me. "I knew it. I knew you wouldn't inherit anything. You're just a burden, and I've been talking to Kim a lot lately. Honestly, you're just in my way. I want a divorce now, since there's nothing in it for me if we stay together. Simon had already signed his portion of the divorce papers, so I signed them immediately. I couldn't help but feel a twinge of satisfaction as I watched Simon leave with the papers, eager to file them at the city office. This was likely the last time I'd see him smile so broadly, and the same went for my mother and sister. It felt like justice was finally catching up with those who had tormented my father and me for years. Later that day, I consulted with a lawyer who had handled my father's will and asked him to accompany me to my parents' house. When I presented the real will to my mother and sister, their usual calm demeanor turned to shock and disbelief as they read the document over and over. "This is a lie," my mother protested. "I have a will here that states Kim and I are the sole heirs." "If you claim the other will is a forgery," the lawyer said, "we can conduct a handwriting analysis. If it's proven to be a fake, you could be charged with fraud. Are you prepared to face that?" My mother was left speechless, unable to respond. I also learned a great deal from Dan. He revealed that even after his health declined, my mother and sister had abandoned him, sold all his possessions without permission, and acted as they pleased. Kim, on the other hand, had been indulging in reckless behavior, gambling and spending excessively from his personal bank account, leaving him deeply in debt. Due to these malicious actions, both of them were stripped of any inheritance rights. The lawyer made it clear that if my mother and sister continued to unjustly interfere with my inheritance, we would file a lawsuit against them. As the lawyer finished speaking, my mother and sister were left in a state of utter despair. I decided it was time to collect my father's hidden bank book and leave my parents' house for good. With that, I finally felt completely free from the burdens of my family. Soon after, Simon, unaware of the truth, apparently approached my sister, hoping to start a relationship with her. My mother and sister, keeping the inheritance issue a secret, married him quickly. Their aim was to secure a steady source of income and make him their personal ATM. Simon, deceived and eager to enjoy his newfound wealth, bought several luxury cars and quit his job, relying on what he thought was their inheritance. Eventually, Simon noticed something was off and reached out to me in a panic. "Jane, I was wrong. You're all I have. I want to start over." I replied simply, "I don't need you anymore. Besides, you have Kim now. You should take care of your wife properly," and gently ended the call. Moments before Simon called, I had received a call from Kim. "You've ruined my life." Simon quit his job and splurged like a fool as soon as we got married. "I can't believe a man who only cares about money is now my husband. My family name is tarnished because of him. What are you going to do about it?" I responded calmly, "Kim, you're just as interested in money as Simon is. You two are a perfect match. Besides, I heard you and Simon were getting along well while we were still married. Be happy your love came true. I'll be filing a claim for compensation for the affair, though. From now on, let's only communicate through our lawyers. I never want to hear from you again." "Hey, I'm your sister. Aren't you going to treat me like family?" Kim protested. I laughed at her words. "You're the one who never treated me like family." With that, I hung up, blocked her number, and never heard from her again. I was finally free. I used my father's inheritance to build a new house and settled into it. I found a fulfilling job as an office clerk and embraced a busy but satisfying life on my own. Occasionally, I felt a pang of loneliness, but I knew my father was watching over me. As I looked at his picture on my wall, I felt his gentle smile and knew he was proud.